Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Burke County Board of Commissioners recess meeting for Tuesday, May the 29th, 2018. I'd like to welcome everyone here this afternoon. Appreciate you being here. All the commissioners are present, Madam Clerk, and along with the county manager, attorney, and deputy manager as well. I'd like to remind you to silence your mobile devices. If you have those with you, please take a moment to be sure they're on vibrate or cut off so that we're not interrupted during our meetings today. Also remind you, as well as the commissioners, to activate your microphones when you're speaking. If you have a presentation to make today, please come to the table in front of us and be sure to turn on the microphone where we can hear you and where folks can hear you that might be listening over the internet or other means as well. Okay, gentlemen, this brings us to item 2 on the agenda, approval of the agenda. You've had this agenda for several days. I'll entertain a motion to approve it as received. Thank you, Maynard. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. I believe that's all of us, Madam Clerk. Which brings us to item number 3, items for discussion. First item for discussion today is from Fire Marshal, Volunteer Fire Department request for tax rate change. This will be presented by Cecil Huffman, Deputy Fire Marshal, Don Britton, George Hildebrand, Volunteer Fire Department Board Member, Bobby Craig, George Hildebrand, Chief. You guys come on up, or whoever's going to make the presentation, and be glad to hear from you. Afternoon, Don.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes. Okay, very good. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Chairman, we appreciate the opportunity, and we're looking to have an increase in our taxes this year because we have been at the same tax rate since 2013, and of course, since that time, prices have just gone crazy. But we have several items that are really pressing us this year. We've kind of put off for some time. We have trucks that have tires that have aged out or aging out this year, and that's the expenditure of about $2,500 a truck. We have 4 trucks right now that we're in that position on. Our breathing apparatus, has gone to about $8,800 a set, and the bottles age out also, just like the tires do. And we've been budgeting this year to buy at least 6 30-year bottles, and that's going to be a continuing effort because we have about 24 bottles that are aging out over the next year or so. Same thing with uniforms. Uniforms now have gone to about $4,500 a set. Which is ridiculous, but that's just where they are. And we have uniforms just like tires, they age out, and our uniforms have gotten to the point where they're aging out, so we have to purchase those items. And it just, goes down. Our insurance has increased about $3,000 this next year. Our legal and accounting is going up because we had to have the full-fledged audit this year, so that was about $3,300 of additional costs this year. So that's our budget for this year, is to try to maintain and keep up. And being a rural department, we're handicapped some. We're just dependent upon taxes, basically, sir.
All right, thank you, Don. Gentlemen, any questions for Don or Bobby on this item?
Don, I just asked
yes,
our legal advice if you were required to have a public meeting before you increased, or community meeting rather, and he said no, but that brings your tax to 80.9 cents, including your fire tax and the community. How do you think the community feels about that?
we had our annual meeting. We did not discuss that specifically, but we have very good support in our community. I don't think that'd be an issue. The one thing we did with our last truck we bought, our ISO rating dropped from a 7/9 to a 5/9, which saved people money on the insurance for this over the past year or two, and we're as low as we can go with the ISO rating until you gentlemen decide to extend more water lines and add more hydrants. So that's where we are.
You feel pretty positive and be very little negative.
Yes, sir.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Maynard. Any other questions, comments? Okay, gentlemen, this item, you'll notice in the proposed budget, the county manager has included that as they have requested. Any problem with that?
Very good.
All right, hearing none, thank you, Don.
Thank you
Bob.
very much,
Appreciate
sir.
y'all being here.
Yeah.
Thank y'all.
Have a good day.
This brings us to item 2, Sheriff's Department fiscal year 18-19 budget reconsideration. We'll recognize Sheriff Whistler for these comments. Afternoon, Sheriff.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and others, Sheriff's Office recognizes and appreciates the difficult job that you guys have and your budgetary decisions. In light of your task, we want to provide you as much information as we can to enable you to make informed decisions to best serve our citizens. We have 3 items for you to consider in the current proposed budget that you have before you. Number 1 is no recommendation for funding and hiring and training the 44 new detention staff in our new jail. Back in April 26th of 2016, the Sheriff's Office submitted our staffing request of 60 members to safely operate the new jail for both employees and the inmates. We're assuming many of the 37 Burke Catawba District Confinement Facility staff will apply for Sheriff's Office jail positions. All 37 positions will be required to go through the normal Sheriff's Office application and background process. At least 7 additional positions will be needed to be hired. Combined with the current 16 in our downtown jail, that will get us to the staffing request of 60. In an effort to keep staffing as lean as possible, the requested 60 positions were pared down from the original number of 67 that the current and former jail administrators requested. That pairing eliminated 5 current positions that we already have: a training sergeant, a classification officer, supply officer, and 2 support/floating officers that we use to fill in for officers who are on training, vacation, sick, or so forth. Also, we eliminated 2 lieutenant's positions that would have provided a lieutenant on each of the 4 shifts. The plan is to use the 2 remaining lieutenants that we're asking for to be responsible for 2 shifts each. The duties of these eliminated positions will have to be added to the duties of those 60 existing staff. Because of the bare minimum of 60, the Sheriff's Office needs to have those officers hired, trained, and as many as possible jail certified when the new jail opens. And I think it's important for you to see the factors that we're considering in our request of why we think we need this. Completing 44 applicant packets and background investigations will require a significant amount of time. The Sheriff's Office is planning to request hiring a temporary investigator to complete those investigations. Now we do maybe 1 or 2 at a time, and those are done by our Criminal Investigation Division. Obviously, that takes away from their regular duties of investigating criminal activity. So to do 44 at one time would obviously be overwhelming. Second, due to the geographic nature or location of the jail being separated from the courthouse, 6 of those 60 positions will not be directly used within the new jail, leaving only 54 to operate the jail. That will be only 1 more position than we currently have with the Burke Catawba District Confinement Facility and the downtown jail combined. Those 6 positions will be needed to transport and operate the downtown jail during the days when the court is in session. The new jail has approximately 72,000 square feet versus the current 48,000 square feet that we have between Burke Catawba and the downtown jail. So it's quite a bigger footprint that we're going to be working with. The new jail will have 264 beds versus our current 230 beds. The new jail has 2 40-person cell blocks. The largest cell block we currently have is 16. Jail and correctional facilities are becoming more and more dangerous environments to work within. Inadequate staffing is a reason listed for these facilities being unsafe for both the staff and the inmates. 7 law enforcement and detention staff applicant pools have dramatically decreased, with almost all agencies struggling to fill vacancies. 8, Burke County is facing a significant disadvantage in pay disparity between some of other jails and the North Carolina Department of Corrections Division, who has nearby correctional facilities in both Burke and surrounding counties. But most of all, number 9, we foresee that our most difficult task will be staffing the new jail. In the current law enforcement and detention officer staffing environment, we do not believe we can certify the officers who will need certification, hire and train 44 detention officers, and be ready to open the new jail by the fall of 2019 if we wait until July 1st, 2019 to begin. So we're requesting the ability to begin hiring staff at least 4 months prior to the jail opening. Do you want me to go on to the second item? Or okay. Second item is no recommendation cost of living adjustment known as COLA. No COLA will have a negative impact on recruitment and retention of all the Sheriff's Office staff. Although final compensation is only one reason county employees serve our citizens, it is a significant one. The vast majority of our resignations are for better pay. Lack of a COLA will also exacerbate the problem with us hiring the new jail staff as mentioned above. And then third, recommended funding only replaces 7 of the 12 replacement vehicles that are either aged and or with high mileage. We've been very appreciative of the county's past budgets over recent years in replacing our aged and or our high mileage vehicles. That policy has ensured safe vehicles and lessened costly repairs and maintenance. The transition to some 4-wheel and all-wheel drive vehicles has enhanced our ability to answer calls for services in inclement weather and our ability to traverse difficult terrain. Recent example was the ability of deputies driving a 4-wheel drive truck to drive on a utility right-of-way to pursue suspects. 3 suspects that had been on Ackerd Elementary School property with a shotgun were apprehended a half a mile from the school within 12 minutes of that call. The 5 vehicles that we were not recommended getting were all utility vehicles that were all-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive trucks.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. Any questions for the sheriff on these matters, comments?
Mr. Chairman, is there a suggested cost for the 60 employees you're requesting, and I guess the equipment to equip them to go to work? A suggested cost per employee or a total cost?
Yeah, that would be, obviously you would not have to put them in a uniform until the new jail opens. I think that's not one of our, we don't have that projection right now, but we'd have to work with county manager's office and the new finance director to do that. We're just
at 50,000 per employee.
No, detention staff don't have vehicles. They don't have all these equipment that patrol officers and other officers that have this on patrol, detectives, and so forth. So, no, the cost to equip them is not near the cost it is for sworn officers. Now, we will have 2 sworn officers. Part of that 62 of those will be transport officers. They will be trained and certified as law enforcement officers. That's 18 weeks of basic law enforcement training, 18 weeks of field training. So we would have to get started on hiring them very quickly to get that training accomplished before they start with the new jail.
Well, to look at this in dollars and cents, is there a neighborhood cost per person?
We submitted that.
Employee-wise?
We submitted that cost of in the original request. I think what you had to come in and talk to Paul. Did you talk to Paul via email, or I think they worked together on the cost.
Okay, Paul, I'm assuming it's in your budget book then.
If you look in the jail detention budget, you can see what they requested for personnel and what we recommended. So the difference is the 44 positions. I'm looking to see if I can get you a per person cost real quick here.
Now, one of the things that you need to understand is that the Burke Catawba, the county is paying for half of those 37 positions. You're already paying for 18 and a half of those positions, so that cost will just be moved from one line item to the other. Plus, you'll be giving up the cost to run Burke Catawba at some point. So 44 new,
it's all added cost to Burke County taxpayers. So.
Well, 18 and a half of those positions will not be added cost. But there are going to be 44 new positions because Burke Catawba is a separate agency from the sheriff's office. They will become sheriff's office employees. So there'll be 44 new positions to the sheriff's office. However, 18 and a half of those are already being paid for through Burke Catawba funding.
Other questions, comments for the sheriff?
Just a second, Mr. Chairman, if you will.
While Maynard's looking, Sheriff, if I understand your process here, you're going to take applications from all those existing employees who wish to make the transition, and you're going to do a full background check on each of them. Is that the way
Yes,
I read
and
it?
luckily, they've completed part of the things that we go through at the sheriff's office. We'll just have to update a lot of those. But we will have to go through a regular background investigation.
So is that something you could do on those folks earlier and
Yes,
easier?
we could start those early and determine who is interested in, and so yes, we could start those. The difficulty is sheriff's training and standards will not let you do the background and wait more than, I think is it 3 months? 90 days, and then you have to update it again. So after 90 days, you would have to hire them or do a updated background. And that's what we worry about. Starting 4 months, the problem is if you had 44 people that you could hire, many of those people won't be able to wait until the new jail opens. If they're going to be hired, they'll want you to start paying them, I'm sure. So our concern is we'd like to start hiring them about 4 months. When we do a background investigation, if they meet the qualifications, then we would like to offer them a job. Our first question would be, can you wait until the new jail opens before we bring you on? Obviously, that'd be a cost savings to the taxpayer. We would like to do that. I just don't know how many people will be willing to wait up to 4 months before coming to work. For those that won't, I don't think we have the luxury of passing them by. We'd probably have to hire them.
Okay, man.
Yeah, the increase in your personnel only went up $86,000 on this budget form. And of course, your increase in personnel that's not nearly going to cover anything like you're talking about. You also show a revenue increase of $419. Is that based on tax revenue, or Paul?
For the sheriff's budget? No, that would basically be jail fees and things like that. So, you know, that revenue budget has nothing to do with property tax, or anything like that.
I know, but does it, you call that it says a non-tax revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Is that from renting out space, hopefully? Is that what that's projected on?
Now, like I said, the sheriff's jail budget, if you look in the, let's see, pages, starting page 14, you'll see all the sheriff's revenues listed. So, you know, just look at the items, you know, that start with jail. And like I said, the jail fees, which is money collected by the clerk courts, their largest revenue at $55,000. Then you get, you know, some miscellaneous little jail commissary, jail inmate phone commissions. So there's just a limited number of revenue sources that, you know, we have to offset the cost of the detention budget.
Do we anticipate renting out a lot of sales?
Well, see, the budget as recommended doesn't rent beds, so we're using beds. So we won't get, the only, I guess, theoretically, bed rental space or cost we would get was the sheriff gets a little bit through the misdemeanor reimbursement program that, and I'm trying to see how much that is.
$40 a night.
Yeah, it's we estimate $27,000 for inmate reimbursement, NC Sheriff Association. So that's only, you know, related jail rental costs we get. Because we're using beds, we're not renting beds.
With 60 new employees at even 30,000 is $900,000 a year. And we don't have it in the budget mainly because we don't intend that cost to be till the following year. Is that correct?
That's correct. Gentlemen, we've gone through a transition before when we did 911, and things don't always happen according to construction completion schedule. There's so many variables in this, you can't really with any precise level of accuracy forecast when things are going to happen, and even if the building were to be completed fairly close to the anticipated, you open it when you got the staffing, and you plan on how to do that, and you work that into your budget. As far as the bed rentals, that's another item that our relationship with Catawba County is questionable about when they're going to leave the building. So I feel comfortable waiting until the budget 1920 comes along, that we get to those kinds of brass tacks. I just didn't feel comfortable or see a need actually to go ahead and try to be prepared in this budget for that facility to be open. And if we are going to continue with Burke Catawba for a while in its current usage purpose, you would be able to rent out a number of beds. It's kind of hard to forecast, but I'm hearing of other counties. Alexander County is loving it. We're keeping about 40 people over there every day, and you do $40 times 40. That turns into some money fairly quickly. So again, I felt fairly comfortable, and just saying this will be an item for the budget that follows the one we're contemplating now.
That's what I anticipated, and the other thing, trying to help myself more than anybody else, but it would be nice if we could project, and Steve, I don't know what that takes, if we could rent enough space to pay 50% of the cost of that additional operating cost, and that's what I was trying to kind of wrap my arms around, Steve, is to see where all that money is coming from.
And we understand that there's, the building may not be completed on the tentative date, and we're fine with it. I'm just wanting to make sure that the commissioners understand that if this thing opens in September, we do not believe that we can start in July and have those people hired by September. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any other questions, comments for Steve? Gentlemen, you've received the manager's recommendations. Any other comment, Brown, you want to make about your recommendations?
No, again, there's lots of variables. We tried to respond to that, and again, once the building has met its completion of its construction, it doesn't mean that we're obligated by some statute to immediately staff it and have it. If it takes a little bit of a transit, and this is a transition just like the 911 facility. There we did go ahead and hire early, and the building was like 90 days late. And if this past 2 weeks is any kind of indication of what the weather's going to be like for the next 6 months, we may be lucky to open in January 2019. So, again, there's certain things that are out of our hands, and I feel comfortable. Again, we open the doors when we are staffed and ready to.
Other comments?
The only other comment I would say is that, Steve, I don't think any of us, and I'm not speaking for the board, I'm speaking for Maynard, would leave you out in the cold. But I think the board understands that, and if it happens, they get ahead of schedule and they're going to get open a little more, I think we'd be willing to look at something in general fund that would accommodate what you're saying if it needs to be. But I kind of agree. We're kind of jumping the gun, I think, to plan that money, and I don't know if we can in 3 months or not. But if it's a month or two later, that would give us plenty of time to put that in next year's budget.
And again, we have no issue with that at all. The way it stood before was the jail's supposed to open in September. We just wanted to make sure the commissioners knew that the way it stands with the current budget, we didn't think we could hire the people and open in September. If it's delayed, we have no issue with that. We'll just start higher and later.
Any other question, comment
Chairman.
on? Yes.
Paul, ballpark figure, how much money did we spend last year, inmates in other counties that we had to move? Because I know we moved $1.5 million not long ago to the sheriff.
Well, we gave them an extra, 250,000, at the beginning of the year. Let's see if I can find it real quick.
And while he's looking, Mr. Commissioner, the thing that you won't have to worry about is taking them in multiple counties and going to pick them up. At least they're going to be in Burke County. My goal is just to get beds in Burke County, whatever most benefit the taxpayer. So that's going to be nice, not having to go to another county, because what's happening now is we're using all our bailiffs. We have as many as 11 people transporting back and forth between counties to get them back here. So that, although that's not a number that's included in all this, that is the time and wear on the cars and the overtime that you're paying is significant, taking those people to other counties.
What's the furthest county where usually is done?
Alexander County is the farthest county that we're taking them. But we've had them in how many counties? Five different counties we've had to take people to.
You went all the way from Transylvania County to Ashe County.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were all over the place.
So that's been a tremendous expense and labor-intensive expense that we're having to pay overtime to do.
Steve, is most of that transportation done after hours, or will
What we have to
these
do,
folks be
yes.
available to maybe apply for jobs in the new jail?
But what we've been doing is, after the bailiffs get finished of court, then they start transporting. And they even have to transport the involuntary commitments. We have involuntary commitments that we take all the way to the coast. And what people don't understand, once we take them to the coast, then we're going to go back and pick them up. And so the bailiffs have been carrying that duty for the most part too, because we want to leave our patrol officers in the county answering calls for service rather than be driving to the coast and back. That happens quite a lot, and that's the reason why the lieutenant of the jail and courthouse, the combination, he's lieutenant over both, he says he's been using 11 different staff to transport people in multiple counties, plus involuntary commitments. And if we take somebody from the jail to the hospital, we've got to sit with them. And that's another thing that we have to use those officers for, and pay them overtime to go sit with somebody that's standing by that we've got in custody at a hospital. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize that really eat up a lot of labor cost, overtime expenses.
All right, thanks, Steve. Gentlemen, any other concern about this item? You've seen Brian's proposed budget. You've heard the explanation. Any further direction on
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, in answer to Commissioner Carson's question, last year we spent approximately $350,000 on bed rentals to either Burke and Tava or outside the county.
But Paul, to understand correctly, the bed cost is only about probably half the cost.
Yeah,
The rest is in all that.
you
But
gotta
even
go
if
pick them
you
up,
pick a
pack-
number, if you pick a number of $600,000-700,000, it's still a whole lot more less than it's going to cost just to employ the new jail, let alone the other expenses that comes along with it. So you're going to be looking at a pretty stiff operating cost increase in running that jail.
other questions, comments? All right, here none. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Brings us to item number 3, Board of Elections. This will be presented by Board of Elections members, Tracy and Don. Afternoon, Tracy.
Morning. Thanks for coming and allowing us to come. We had some positive things in this budget, and we would point those out to you. We've had an additional board member added by the state, and you provided us with funds to continue paying, to pay that person. That's added to our budget. There appears to be a 1.5% COLA in our increase in funds. There's no increase in funds in salary. Then we do have a little bit of money then to give our folks a raise. I figured it was a COLA. These are positive things that happen, the things that bother us that we feel like are an issue or will be an issue with us. And, you know, that there are 4 board members now, and of course, still the number of employees we have, but we also have lots of judges, poll workers, if most people call them, and some of those have come today. I'm going to ask them if they'll stand to let the commissioners know that we're not in this by ourselves. We do have other people involved and other people who are willing to come. Thank you. In trying to get our message across, we recommended a $5,000 legal fee addition to our budget. I've been a board member now for a little less than 8 years, and there have been 5 times where we needed legal assistance. When I've called the county manager and asked for legal assistance, first of all, what I did was call the lawyer because he's a county attorney, and was asked him if he could help. His office returned a message. He returned a call and said that he could not help us without the county commissioner's, county manager's permission. That puts us at a disadvantage. We have hearings that are legal hearings. We have one that case is still pending now. Hope we haven't made a mistake in our ignorance to cause it to be thrown out of court or not to be tried properly. But when we asked for an attorney to come and sit and see that we did what we were supposed to do as a body, a legal body, when it comes to personnel or voters in the county, we've been denied that opportunity. So we put $5,000 in the budget so that we would have money to do that in case we have such a situation. If someone votes illegally or signs a form that they live in a certain household in this county, and indeed they do not, that's a first-class felony, long-term jail, and we don't want to make a mistake on for the county by our ignorance and knowing what the legal routes are. So we put that in the budget for that purpose. We requested additional person. We have added, and I've shared this with you before, or it's been shared before, that we have added a position, a need for a position based on the state's requirements for us reassuring that we have no one vote illegally. We have had people who live in one county outside of Burke County, I won't name the county, lived outside of Burke County, thought they lived in the county. We couldn't tell any difference from the address, and so they voted here for 20 years. Finally got the state to do something and found out that they live outside the county. They also paid the county taxes, so that was a negative, but those kind of things happen if we don't have an accurate computer-assisted program to do what needs to be done. We would like for our budget to be filled as requested. We think that we spent many hours, and the other board members are here, and I'm sure they'll be willing to answer questions if you have questions of them. As we requested it, we think that we're frugal people. We all live in the county and we pay taxes, and we don't want to see them go up, but by the same token, we want to be sure that the needs of the voters of this county are met, and that's what we're charged with.
Okay, thank you, Trustee.
Sure.
Gentlemen, any questions on this matter? You've heard Trustee's report. You've seen the proposed budget. Okay, Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, a couple of comments, if I can. The total request was 491 plus K, and granted was 358 or recommended, which is 30% plus less than the request, and that does seem awfully high as a request to delete that fund. But the biggest one I see was the 97,000, which was for salary, for election workers. And the number is zero beside that, and I just wondered how you were gonna operate a board without any salaries for employees. Salaries full-time was 154, and then it was reduced to 105. And then your 97, which was a request, was reduced to zero. The other large ticket item was printing. They had requested 18, and on their budget, it only gave them 6,000. And the other item was technology at 21,000. Probably could use some expanding on that, Mr. Chairman, of how we're going to achieve that.
All right, thank you, Maynard. I've not been able to follow those numbers. Paul, did you follow that?
Yeah, to help clarify, Commissioner Taylor's questions, in the request column, the 97,000 for the election workers, that was included in the regular salary cost. It's actually for 2 elections. So if you look down below that, you'll see that in the recommended column, if you go down to the general election, there was no request, but 48.5 was recommended. So the 97,000 reflected, as well as some of the other costs you mentioned, was the cost to hold 2 elections. So the recommended budget reflects the cost to operate the 1 election and not 2. So that's why some of those costs you'll see in the recommended is 0, but if you look in the general election category for both personnel and I guess operating section, you'll see some of those same costs. Half of the requested amount is included in those numbers. So, that's why it may look a little odd, but that's the difference in those items that you pointed out being 0 funded. They're actually funded at half of those requested amounts to reflect 1 election instead of 2.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes.
The second election would have been a second primary, and they were leaning toward that statewide. We thought there would be, so at the time for this budget, the second election was put in there, and that was the second primary. As it turns out, we do not, so the amount for the poll workers is sufficient for the 1 election in November.
That would eliminate 97,000 of it,
No, half of it,
half of it. Okay.
which is what that shows here, which is, Paul breaks it down by election. The only real main concern that I see, and it may not be a big deal, but on our travel and on our training, if somebody could maybe tell us that this upcoming training that Brian has already approved for August, that takes almost all of our training money right there for that one. We've added another board member. All these board members are going to be termed new board members because their term starts over. So they will have to be trained. That's state law, not ours. And as long as there's what was termed before, I mean, Brian has helped us in the past if we needed funding. I'm hoping that will be the case this time. He's nodding, so I'm assuming. The only other thing is the mileage costs. We now have 4 board members that goes to election day to all the precincts. Those costs have gone up. When you add another member, that's another $300-400. They go all over the county. And IT has had to go spend quite a bit of time at our one-stop sites due to technical difficulties. So those costs have gone up. That's the 2 pretty serious things that I see. We really, really and truly needed that other person really badly with some IT training for our entity.
All right, thank you, Debbie. Any questions to Debbie or Trossie or any other concerns on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, Debbie, can you give us the dollar amount you wanted? I see you had 1,200 in travel.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the other one you listed?
For the travel, 5,000,
5,000.
and, county manager recommended 2. I can promise you we will be short. Don't know how much, because I just don't know, but it will be. When I put this together, it was really close to $5,000. I mean, if you figure all of the mileage from election day, early voting sites that the board members go to, the meetings outside the regular monthly meeting that the board has, and staff travel, myself, I mean, it's close to $5,000. So I don't know what we'll do with 2.
Questions, comments? Any other direction for Brian on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I'm hoping we can have a period of time to digest all this stuff we're going through the last couple of meetings and have discussion on them as we need to or want to.
Okay, I would like to do as much of that as we go along here today, if you're comfortable with it.
Mr. Chairman, I feel strongly too that they can't meet all their travel engagements on that $2,000 that we possibly just put in the budget, another $2,500 for them for the travel. I mean, it's not that big amount of money, and then they don't have to come back to Brian or whatever. They've got it in there, and you know, it just goes smoother.
All right, Paul, help us which line we're looking at. I'm looking at under staff travel, under operating. Is that the line that we need to be looking at?
Yeah, I think that's where their concern is, the request of $5,500 for staff travel and $7,500 for training. And as Debbie mentioned, the training is 5, and then the travel is 1. So I'm assuming that's where Mr. Abley would want to add that back to.
Yeah. I mean, we know we're going to have to do it. Why not do it at this point and make it smoother?
So let's consider changing the 1,000 that was recommended to 3,500. Is that what I'm hearing? Everybody okay with that?
It's 4,500.
45.
Because it recommended 2, and he suggested 25 additional.
I recommend it's 1 on the travel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's 1 on travel.
But there's Mr. Chairman, there's a procedure you go through to travel anyhow. Most of that travel, if not all of it, has to be approved by general manager. So obviously, if we put the budget in there and they don't spend it, it doesn't go. So just to clarify that point.
$3,500 in that line item then for the budget, as far as the budget's concerned.
The staff travel is where the extra 25 needs to be.
That's what it says.
Oh, okay, okay, I just misunderstood. I apologize.
Okay, any other concerns, questions? All right, with that adjustment, then we'll move on. Thank you, Trosty. Debbie?
Thank you.
Okay, this brings us to item number 4, Western Piedmont Community College Fiscal Year 18-19 Budget Reconsideration. This will be presented by Sandy Holman, Chief Financial Officer for the college. Afternoon, Sandy.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak today, and I will be very brief. We appreciate all the county does, not only for Western Piedmont Community College, but all the agencies you assist with funding. In addition, we respect the difficult decisions you must make in spreading limited funds around. I'm requesting a consideration for a higher increase for operational needs based on the following 3 keys. 1, when we first presented our budget request to the county commissioners, we anticipated our rental income, which helps to supplement our county funding, to see some reductions in the coming year. Going into this next year, Appalachian State University and Montreat will be the only 2 universities holding seated classes at FHEC. Western Carolina and Lees-McRae will still hold an office, but they are not doing any seated classes. And Gardner-Webb, approximately 2 weeks ago, informed us that they are going to terminate the facility agreement and not have a presence at FHEC. Online courses are growing across the state and the nation, so this is not unusual to see, but it is disappointing. So therefore, instead of a reduction of $20,000 to our rental income, we're looking at more of an anticipated loss of $40,000 to the rental income, which supplements the county funding. Second, we had requested a 3% increase in salaries with a 0.5% increase in retirement and medical insurance. The medical insurance does seem to be on track for just 0.5%. However, the retirement contribution rate is set to increase to a minimum of 18.55% over the 17.33% it is currently, so almost 7% increase. We must be competitive as well as attempt to retain current skilled employees. The other issue is the salaries itself. What the state is looking at and is being considered in their budget in Raleigh is a 2% salary increase, or $1,250, whichever is higher. Currently, none of our county-supported employees would reach $1,250 with just a 2% increase. The average would be 3.94 to get all of the county employees up to $1,250. In addition, last year the college completed a review of our salary plan in which shows all of our maintenance and facility service employees are due to receive an average of a 6% increase to bring them in line with the current market rate for those positions. Finally, for an example, 2 years ago we had a position for an HVAC specialist that we were unable to fill due to salary funds. And then this year we've lost one of our best employees to another Burke County agency doing the same job duties due again to salary funds. Losing an employee to another county or even to industry is tough, but losing one to another Burke County agency is really disheartening. And as you know, turnover costs are not just financial, but also intangible, such as loyalty to the college, the campus history and knowledge along with the buildings there, the ability to keep the right skilled individuals in those positions. With the addition of the mechatronics, pottery, and cosmetology center, we have additional operating needs and cost. And then lastly, security is on everyone's mind, and while more than 90% of school shootings are committed at the K through 12 systems, community colleges have seen violence as well. Student issues continue to rise in number and seriousness, whether it's mental issues, drug abuse, or other factors that go along with student issues. We are an open institution, so any day we could have third graders to age 65 senior citizens, and we need to protect those individuals on our campus. We've been fortunate not to have a violent incident on campus, but we feel like we need to be better prepared than what we are. We need to move forward with increasing our security personnel to provide more benefits to students, faculty, and staff. It is imperative that we provide adequate presence on all of our campuses, but also that we provide needed training for our staff and our students, in fact, and our employees. Again, please know that we understand the difficult decisions that you must make as county commissioners, and we are supportive of those. We want to assure you that we are conservative with our funding and our requests are based on need, and I want to thank you for your consideration today.
All right, thank you, Sandy. Any questions or comments for Sandy on these items?
Mr. Chairman, this phone. Sandy, is there anywhere else that you have where you can get some of those funds to balance the budget and fill your needs?
As you know, when we present our budget situation each quarter, we have three funding sources: state funds, county funds, and our institutional funds. Institutional funds do help us out on occasion, but we use those mostly for matching on grants. A lot of it is restrictive in nature, so you can't use it but for anything what its intended purpose was. With our state funding and our FTE where it is, the decline in FTE, we are having to use some of those funds to supplement the state budget just to balance that budget. So while there is some flexibility there, not much.
If, just a scenario for you, if we had discussion and could meet half of it, you think you could find half of it somewhere?
We could certainly make adjustments and do what we can to make that work. Yes, sir.
Okay. I believe that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Maynard. Any questions for Sandy?
Mr. Chairman, Sandy, do you have to have that signage this year, or can it wait a year?
We really need it this year only because we've been putting it off for a couple years now. We actually got a bid approximately, I may be incorrect on this, I think it was 2012. And we just weren't able to do it because of funding at that time. But we've got signs now that have the names of the buildings incorrectly. For example, our signage says Health Science Building, but it's actually been renamed to the Jim Burnett Hall Building. The Pfeiffer Learning Resource Center has been changed to Pfeiffer Hall. Plus we have new buildings such as the Mechatronics and Cosmetology. And the greenhouse is no longer located on the main campus, but on the Richardson complex. So our signage is in poor shape. Inaccurate from that standpoint, but also just faded and really looking old.
Sandy, what kind of dollars amounts are you talking about for the employee salaries that you were talking?
I don't have the exact numbers right now. I can certainly get that and get that to the commissioners, but I would say it would be close to $15,000 for salary and benefits just for the current workers that we have. The increase to security that we're looking at is probably looking at $20,000 to $25,000 for the additional security that we want to add.
How are you going, what are you going to do to increase your security?
One thing is adding additional security personnel to be able to be on campus and on the different facilities. Right now, they cover the main campus from 7:30 in the morning till 10 at night. We make rounds to both the K building on the Richardson complex and the Foothills Higher Education Center and also cosmetology, but they're just rounds. They go through those buildings twice a day. I know with our K building, they house our basic skills population. They have constantly, since I've been there, requested more security presence at that building. Cosmetology, while it seems like it's a small area off campus, they've requested quite a bit of security just because they're, you know, all of their students are mostly female. The instructors are female. They're located in a shopping center, which sometimes does not make them feel quite as safe. So one would be adding additional personnel to cover and make a presence known at these facilities. We obviously can't have somebody stationed there full time, but at least we can make more rounds and more of a presence. The second is the training piece. One of the things in the budget request that we presented was we want to do an active shooter drill this year, and we would like to outsource that so that we have the benefits of somebody with the expertise coming in to help us train our staff of what to look for and how to operate in a crisis situation. And then that allows them to take full benefit of those trainings. And that Broughton Hospital just did that, working kind of with Mike Willis here with the county, and it was close to $15,000 to outsource that. But they come in and they do everything. They get it prepared, they set everything up, and they have the after event activities to really show the benefits of what they did.
Brian, we don't have any security in your building or this building, do we?
And we're looking at doing some upgrades for the Register of Deeds office and the tax office, where you have, at times, the tax office significant amounts of money.
Plus you get some angry people in there.
Yeah, they're not always particularly happy. We're just, but that I did not put. I think it was going to be like $200,000 for security and benefits or upgrades to the Avery building, and we're not doing that.
Other questions, concerns?
Mr. Chairman, Paul, did you happen to get a count on that for Western Piedmont? What half of it would be of the total request increase?
We funded 2.1%. They asked for 100,000 additional operating, and we gave them 51. So basically, we gave them half of what they requested.
Okay. So half of that would be 26, is what you're saying?
Yeah, another
24, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to, split the additional half, it'd be another 25.
And their budget would still be under what they had last year, is that correct?
Well, under budget total, because there's some capital things that we paid for in the current year that's gone away. So.
If
if I can speak to security again, once more, we do have Burke Middle College on campus, which is part of the Burke County Public Schools, but they don't provide a resource officer for that, and so our security there, they have security concerns as well, as you can imagine, because they have underage students on campus full-time. So we want to make sure that that we provide that security and peace of mind to all of our students and visitors. We did look at outsourcing that to a law enforcement agency, which is what a lot of our faculty would like to see happen, is to have some, actually sworn officers on campus patrolling, but that was just too expensive for us to be able to do.
Sandy, how many security personnel do you have now?
We have one chief of security, and then we have 6 part-time. And most of those are either retired law enforcement or retired correctional officer employees.
Sandy, 75,000 on the master plan, is that in-house study or are you hiring from outside? Is that necessary for this year?
That would be hiring an architect to come in and do a facility master plan on where we are. We have not done one in over 10 years. We try to have one ready for SACS when they do our reaccreditation. I don't know, I've never seen it anywhere that it's a requirement of SACS, but I know that they look at it every year to show that the college plans for facilities. So it is definitely overdue for us to do one. And we did ask the state if we could use our connectancy bond money for that, and that was not allowed.
Sandy, what if we reduce the master plan to 50,000 and the wayfinding signage to 50,000? That would give us about 35 to do 15 for the salary and 20 for the security. Would that be a reasonable?
That would be reasonable.
Gentlemen, what's your thoughts on that?
I'm fine with that.
I think it's a better deal for her.
Okay. All right.
So what was that, Mr. Chairman?
Move the master plan to 50,000 and the wayfinding signage to 50,000, and then that would accommodate 15 for the salary and 20 for the security. Everybody good with that? Okay, thank you, Sandy.
Thank you very much for your time.
Brings us to item number 5, North Carolina Forest Service budget reconsideration. This will be presented by Ranger Chris Moss. Afternoon, Chris.
Good evening. Just a quick note so far as year in review for the calendar year 2017. We basically had a average year in forest management, somewhere around about 42 plans written this past year. We did have a low point this year with our tree planting. We had 18 propaganda events that we sent out, and of that we only received 2 responses back. People want to plant property cut over this past year. Past that, we did a good bit of order quality where we go out and check logging jobs, making sure that not any non-point pollutions. Then local streams, we did 25 individual different job sites, of which we went back multiple times, somewhere around between 60 and 70 actual visits this year on logging jobs. Fire was up this past year. We made 166 total calls this year that we ran. Of that, 66 were false alarms, 49 were actual reportable fires. Law enforcement was taking on 23 of them, where we actually was able to find responsible parties that started the fires, resulting in 21 warning tickets and 2 citations. The high number of false alarms is a lot higher this year, primarily due to coming out of the 2016 fire season when we had all them fires and people were really run up in arms every time the neighbor lit anything off. We got calls, and people was even calling in fog around Lake James and stuff this past year. So we had a busy year with fires. With that, so far as our budget, I think we're fairly well behaving ourselves this year. It was stated before, the state's proposing a 2% cost of living raise this year. That was added to it. A little bit of money was added to the operation cost this year. I think somewhere around about $765. Cost of living. Some of this is due to the fact this past year we've had to gear up because we're getting ready in July to have a safety audit done of our office. Whereas we were already in pretty good shape, but just due to the fact that a lot of things that through the experience of some of the other districts that's already gone through safety audits, we've had to really go out and get a lot of different things to make sure we go up to par for OSHA. And so that's where much of that's coming through. Also, we're going to be looking at having to update some of our computers and stuff in our office. They're aging out pretty good, around about 10 years of age. I think one of the newer ones we have. And so that's where that's coming from. That and primarily that safety audit was we were having to really gear up and get a lot of stuff and get ready for that safety audit. There's like about a little over a percentage that they're pulling out of our retirement too, which increased the total benefits up a little bit over, I think, $1,500 what it was last year. Other than that, it's pretty good. I would like to say that I would like to mention too, this past year we was able to purchase a new UTV Polaris that the total cost of it was around $7,000, and of that $7,000, due to the fact that we used some outside funding, it only cost the county's 40%, around about $2,000 came out of the actual budget, Burke County budget. We was able to use monies that we're using from our burning program we have with the U.S. Forest Service that we did a lot of the burn around Lake James, and we were able to get over about $13,000 out of that we used for the purchase. So we're happy to have that piece of equipment. We had an old ATV before it, and it's pretty much been laid out to the side because pretty much every time we took it in the shop, it was costing between $1,000 and $2,000 to get it fixed. So we went ahead and replaced that this year, and we was happy that we was able to do it without having to use too much of the budget to get that. And that's pretty much all we have for now this year. You have any questions?
All right, thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris on this item?
Yeah, one quick question. Does Caldwell County supplement Lenore? Caldwell County.
They do in some ways. I do know they give extra for the smoke chaser position though in that county. Is that what you're talking about so far as supplementing, or are you talking about sort of like the increases that they proposed this year?
Yeah. What part? How much money does Caldwell County supply your unit? And
I understand it's the usual 40%, like most other counties are.
Pardon?
The 40% of our total budget. Like Burke County is, Burke County pays 40% of our total.
Both of us have been doing 40%.
Best of my knowledge, they are.
Is the state doing anything on your behalf for this year? Are they upping their budget any?
They're supposed to. I mean, that's the proposal. That's the proposal this year.
They do have a proposal.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I believe that was it.
Okay, other questions? Chris, so who's the primary involved? If the state doesn't come up with their 60%, does that reduce ours? Or if we say, no, we're not going to pay 40%, maybe it's 38%, does that reduce the state funding? How does this work?
Well, that's not really my area of specialty. That's the way I've always understood it, the way it would be. If they don't come up with their part of it, it just doesn't be part of the whole. So
the state's the controlling factor in?
I'm assuming so.
Oh, do you know the answer to that?
My understanding is the state approves the overall cost. And my understanding is the state approves the overall Forest Service budget, and then our contract with them is we pay 40% of that number. So if the state, wasn't happy with, what their 60% would calculate out to be, and, want to lower it, then that would automatically lower our 40%.
Paul, I don't have their budget request in front of me, but there's not any new truck this year, is there?
We should be good, unless something happens, we should be good for at least another 2-3 years.
Okay, so,
Yes. Do all 100 counties get a percentage, operating percentage?
It's my understanding, out of the 40-60 split is the
That
common.
this has been a state mandate for a number of years.
Yes, sir. Since somewhere back in the 1930s, I think, when they first started drawing up the contracts for many of the counties.
So what does that 40% buy me?
The 40%, first of all, our first and foremost responsibility is wildland fire. We have general statute puts us over all wildland fire. We have all of our equipment in the county here, 3 brush trucks, 2 primer brush trucks, 1 spare brush truck. We have a Humvee, a federal decent half tanker just within our county. Pretty much you have basically you have all the other resources of the state of North Carolina that you're responsible to. That's what happened down here at South Mountains, and I took over by day 3 or 4. I went ahead and started calling in for a larger management team. They come in at that point, then they headed on to even more. They got the feds involved and started bringing in some of the bigger crews. Yeah, I mean, at any point, it's been for any incident, even from fire, flood, tornadoes. I've many times some of the other counties will have resources from down east come up. You have our dozer, our aircraft.
Actually, Chris, I don't think the average citizen in the county realizes that we provide 40% and the services that are provided. I mean, you got it broken down in here to what it does. I just think it's for transparency reasons that people need to know that we have been providing 40% of that operating expense, and I'm glad to know that all 100 counties do it, even though it is a mandate.
so Paul, is it fair to say basically every line item in this budget, we're paying 40% of it? Is that the way it's presented to you when you get the bill,
Yep.
basically?
Yeah, each month they'll, the Forest Service sends a bill of how much they spent by line item that month. And then, they, at the end, they summarize, here's your 40% and give you a dollar amount. So, yeah, that's the way it's structured.
Okay, so gentlemen, it looks like this item basically just needs to go in the budget as the 40% might require. Any other concern from anybody?
Mr. Chairman, one more quick question, if I may. Chris, when you go out and do forestry service and you send me a bill, is that money included in this projected budget?
So if we got to do something and then that person pays back, it's telling me it's coming back to the county?
No, does it come back to your department, doesn't it?
We don't come back to my office, it goes to the North Carolina Forest Service General Fund,
Yeah.
my understanding is.
And it goes to the state or to your office?
Probably back to the state, to the general pot. I mean,
We've done that a couple of times for me, and I was just wondering if that, because I am presuming, which is probably incorrect, that fee there alone of the many people you serve would be more than the $244,000.
Right.
So I'm assuming it went to the state, correct? So you,
That's my understanding.
yeah, so you don't have that income source to supplement your budget.
Right.
Thank you.
So my understanding is it goes back to the Department of Agriculture, which we're under now. And that's why they started charging fees for plans, to help subsidize that budget. So, I mean, I guess in the long run, it may trickle down to us, but it goes to the general fund for the Department of Agriculture, Forest Service.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm assuming you realize that we didn't have his information when we had our first budget workshop, and since it wasn't included, I'm trying to treat everybody the same. If it didn't get in, you got to come down today. And so it's not unusual for us to fund his agency. It's just more procedural today.
All right, thank you, Chris. This brings us to item number 6, Blue Ridge Community Action, Budget Reconsideration. This will be presented by Karen Harshman, PRCA Finance Director. Afternoon, Karen.
Good afternoon. So I'm here to request some cash match for our Senior Community Service Employment Program. Blue Ridge Community Action was asked to sponsor and operate this program in January of 2017. So from July 1st into June 30th, 2018 is our first complete year of operation. There are 59 slots allotted for the program. 14 of those are in Burke County. The program serves low-income adults over the age of 55 who have barriers to employment. They serve in a community service capacity, and there are currently about 14 sites in Burke County in which they're serving. Those are local nonprofits or local government, the Burke County Friends for Animal, United Way, Burke Hospice, United Christian Ministries, Outreach Center, the senior centers, the History Museum, so on and so forth. I could go on. Blue Ridge Community Action has almost an $11 million budget. Am I correct that the county budget was $85 million? Is that correct? And so $3.4 million of our budget are resources specifically for Burke County. That's about 4% of the county budget. So Blue Ridge Community Action brings a lot of resources to Burke County. Obviously, we've been operating 53 years. The folks in this program, even though it only brings in about $105,000 worth of training dollars that represent those 14 people, 22 people will go through those 14 slots, and 5 of those we're required to place in employment, unsubsidized employment, at least at a part-time job at a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. So we're required for the entire program for the 7 counties to come up with a match of $64,295. We do that in a variety of ways. We have our own reserves. We fundraise specifically for the program, and we solicit donations from local benefactors as well as some of the host agencies in which these participants serve in their community service assignment. The income that's generated for the county for these 5 participants that actually gain unsubsidized employment is $36,000. That's based on a 1,040-hour work year at $7.25 an hour. Again, the federal money that comes in is $105,000, so there's $142,000 worth of cash resources for participants that come into Burke County, which generates revenue and stimulates the economy. I realize it's a very small portion of the total grant, but there's over $400 million available nationwide to serve this population.
All right, gentlemen, you've heard this information. Any questions for Karen on this item? Any further direction to our manager on this item? All right, here none. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate you being here this afternoon.
Thank you.
Brings us to item number 7, Burke Arts Council budget reconsideration. We'll hear from Deborah Jones this afternoon. Afternoon, Deborah.
Hello. Hi. So first I want to say thank you. The county has provided funding in the past few years in the amount of $8,000 per year. So I'm here to ask for that amount for the same amount this year. And the funds from the county are pretty much for general operating purposes, utilities, insurance, internet, and staff. We have 1 full-time person and 1 part-time person. I'm a full-time person. And so to make our programs work, we depend on scores of volunteers. Our arts and education, I'll just give you a little bit about what we do, because I don't know if you know what we do. The arts and education programs that we provide, an after-school program and a summer art program, and every year it keeps growing, especially with the county school system cutting the art programs. Hundreds of children benefit There are several weeks in the summer that were booked up already for the summer art camp. For the North Carolina Arts Council, we are been approved as a designated county partner. So we manage and distribute funds for numerous art programs throughout the county. In 2018-19, we'll receive over $40,000, which will be distributed. $13,000 will go to local organizations for arts programming through the Grassroots program. The JAM program, which is the Junior Appalachian Musicians in partnership with Morganton Parks and Rec, will receive $15,000 in the coming year for after-school programs. The Cartwheels grant is in partnership with CAMA and the Burke County Public Schools. And this provides art learning experience. It's a program that is in the school, a workshop, and at CAMA. And then the Regional Artists Project Grant that we work with 5 other counties to distribute grants to artists. We operate 2 vibrant art galleries in the Jailhouse Gallery. We serve hundreds of artists. And then we provide, we do all the cultural things like the downtown art crawl and our annual film events, the Etta Baker Memorial that we managed, and managed the funding and the artists. And our biggest fundraiser that brings a bunch of people to Morganton and Burke County is the oyster outing in the fall. That's our biggest fundraiser. And then through the North Carolina Arts Council and in partnership with the City of Morganton, the Smart Initiative Grant has been approved that will allow us to use our arts and cultural assets to revitalize the downtown. And we partner with the hospital, Carolina's healthcare system, Options, Burke Recovery, the Rotary Club, Grace Ridge, St. Charles Borromeo, and Western Arts Agencies of North Carolina. So.
Okay, thank you, Deborah. Questions, comments for Deborah on this item?
Mr. Chairman, does any of the other, you talked about the City of Morganton or any of them, do they put funding in the Arts Council? And I think you mentioned 2 other counties that we do something with, or?
There's 5 counties that we work with. We all take part of that funding from the North Carolina Arts Council, and we pool. So it's Alexander, Catawba, Caldwell, McDowell, and Burke. So there's 5 counties. So we give a grants to artists. The City of Morganton, we are rent-free, and in the jailhouse we don't pay any rent, and pretty much if there's major repairs, they take care of that. The Main Street office provides marketing funding for us.
Other questions for Deborah?
Mr. Chairman, Wayne, I don't know if I understood your question or not, but does Burke County, Morganton City participate in this, in the Burke Arts with support?
Yes.
They do. How about other counties? You're just in Burke County though, right?
Right. Well, we partner, we're part of the Western Arts Agencies of North Carolina, so we partner with other on the western part of the state, but getting funding from them, no, we just participate with programs.
So we do, you get some assistance from Morganton. How about Drexel, Valdez, Hildebrand, Rutherford College?
No.
No. That's all I had,
We
Mr.
provide,
Chairman.
we do provide, part of our grassroots funding goes into a lot of the schools there, and with the Rock School, we provide, they have a major program every year that grant is what we manage through the state.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I think just a general comment, I really like the organization. I think y'all do great work. I'd like to see some type of funding for them personally.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the county has given funding to them for over the past number of years. The request for the funding did come in by the deadline, and they weren't participants in the February meeting. So again, I'm trying to treat anybody that didn't get in, they're all coming up today, whether they're a State Department or somebody that you funded in the past, or especially if it's somebody that's new that we've never been asked to fund, because again, this budget is predicated on appropriation of fund balance. So every dollar you give out beyond what's already in the recommended budget is just a little deeper. And the state fire folks, we understand, and that this agency is another one that you may want to, since you have in the past. But again, that'll be a board decision.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was something I missed. I don't know if something's different, but this is a big item in our annual budget, and so thank you for your time.
Thank you, Deborah. Gentlemen, I'd like to suggest we maintain this funding at the same level as 17-18. I do think they provide a valuable service to our county. Many of our citizens use the Art Council, and I'd like to suggest we maintain that funding.
I'm fine with that.
Everybody okay with that? All right. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
All right. This brings us to item 8, Friends of the Valdez Rec. Budget reconsideration. Beth Howe. Did I say that right?
No, it's highly. I think I'm highly energetic.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Manager Steen. And if the wizard could put up my 3-page letter that's got some pretty pictures. I don't know where that wizard is, but I see that. Yep, that's it. The picture will be great. My name is Beth Hiley, and I was born in Valdez. My mom is Pat Zimmerman, and my daddy is the late Glenn Zimmerman, and my brother is Barry Zimmerman. So I'm from here, and I'm proud to be from Burke County. I'm president and founder of Friends of the Valdez Rec. I'm just a volunteer. I don't get paid for this stuff, but I love it. And I'm here to request funds for the Valdez Lakeside Park project in the amount of $6,000 for a welcome kiosk at the park. I started Friends of the Valdez Rec about 3 years ago to help the town acquire 300 acres on Lake Roadhis for a park. It was a partnership between the Friends, the town of Valdez, and Foothills Conservancy in Morganton, and we were able to purchase the $1.4 million property with state grants and private donations. The land, if you can see this picture, is the 300 acres, and it's about 2.5 miles from downtown Valdez, and it's in town limits. So if you were like going on Main Street, and then you went down Laurel, and then you took a right on Lovelady, then you took a left at the bottom of the hill, that's called Lake Roadhis Drive, go out towards Strawn High School, all of that property on the left, all the way over to McGaggard Falls is the 300 acres. So it's a prime location, and we hope to have a greenway, a 2-mile greenway between the wastewater treatment plants over on the right-hand side over to McGaggard Falls Park. So that's kind of the big picture of it. Let me see where I am. Oh, we closed on the land January 31st, and now we're ready to start building a park. And thanks to Commissioner Carswell to coming to our ribbon cutting in March to keep up with what's going on. So he can attest that the land is really there. What would the park have, and what would it look like? Next picture, please, Mr. Wizard. There we go. We would have everything passive parks normally have: hiking, biking, kayaking, disc golf, beautiful views of the lake and Table Rock, picnicking, and of course the greenway that I mentioned. This is part of our park plan that we paid for, and it shows the core or the nucleus inside of that 300 acres, which is like a gathering area, and that's where the kiosk could be. If you could go down very slowly, there's a little picture of what a kiosk is if you don't know what that is. And we're going to have very fancy, stylish things but at a good price. So that's kind of the idea of why a kiosk is $6,000. Because also there's a lot to show when you got 300 acres and 8 miles of mountain biking trail and 6 miles of walking trails and all kinds of other great things. We've been fundraising well over a year for amenities to show grant officials the community is interested in this project. With Carolina's healthcare system leading the way, we're just over $100,000 right now. Recently, the Valdez town manager presented the idea of a tax increase to pay for the park all at once and be completed in 2 years. As that was going through the process of public input, a problem came up in town that needs to be dealt with, and the tax increase as a method of funding the park is off the table, not the project itself. There just won't be a tax increase. Since that time, I've met with our town manager, Seth Eckerd, Parks Director Doug Knight, the COG, and our park planner to come up with a new strategy on how to build the park, starting with the phase 1. If I can get my fundraising up to $200,000, and that includes 6 from you guys, we hope to use grants to multiply that into $800,000. If you can move to page 3, please. And now you can look at some pretty pictures to think about how great this is going to be. So why should Burke County donate to a park in Valdez? Well, 2 things. One, it's in line with your 2014 Parks and Rec plan that you paid for. And second, the economic impact that the park will have on our county. You had a comprehensive Parks and Rec plan created by McGill Associates, and that included public input meetings. And it had a list of the top new facilities people in Burke County thought would be great. A repeated entry was the existing trail used by locals for exercise near the Valdez water treatment plant should be converted to a public park. And that's that road that goes down by Drawn High School and that people walk. It's a mile long. There's no cars on it really, and it's got tenths of a mile marked, and people love that place. Then there are 3 general features from your plan that said people wanted greenway trails, walking and jogging trails, and bike trails. So again, our park offers all that county people are asking from you. One of the key things was in the overall report conclusions. It said 81% of the respondents said they would use a recreation facility more often if it was closer to their home and work. And the report states, since most of Burke County's facilities are located fairly centrally in Morganton, the county needs to explore ways to expand facilities and opportunities to other areas of Burke County where people live, work, and play. So you wouldn't really own the park, but you'd be helping those poor little people in eastern Burke County have more things to do. Economic impact was something I've learned a lot about during this process relating to tourism and new residents. I believe we need to build this park now with all the work that has gone into bringing 700 new jobs to the county over the next 5 years. Along with the School of Science and Math, the town of Valdez and the county need to be ready to shine to make sure those coming for jobs also stay living here. And how would our Valdez Park benefit the Burke County economy? Because it will complement and make stronger what's already here in Burke County. When I started this, you might think I'm from Texas because I wanted everything to be the biggest and the best and have everything. Well, I was in high school in the 80s, so I had big hair and big shoulder pads. But I learned along the way because we used the same park planner you guys did with Destination by Design. And I've been talking to Tim Johnson, the Fonta Flora trail guy, to say we need to learn to complement. So at Valdez, we don't need mountain bike trails for beginners, intermediates, and advanced. We need to kind of complement what's going on at Lake James so people will come and stay the whole weekend. And they'll do Valdez one day and Lake James the next day. And we don't need a disc golf course. It's just like Catawba Meadows or just like Bethel Park. We need to kind of be a little bit different. So again, people will come for weekend tournaments and they can be playing at all the different locations at all the different times. All right, where am I at now? Oh, yes. I also talked to Ed Phillips at Burke County Tourism Office because we want to be a part of Burke County's Nature's Playground. And I learned how we need to be different from Catawba Meadows and what people say when they come to his office, what they're looking for. Also, a county mountain bike team has started out for middle school and high schoolers in our county, and it'd be nice for Drawn High School and Valdez Lakeside Park to be a base training site for them. We need to connect our blueways. You can put in at Huffman Bridge in Morganton and take out in Valdez, or take out at Castle Bridge in Rutherford College. And we need to connect our greenways. I've talked to Bryant Lindsay on how we can connect our greenway to Morganton or South Mountains. So it's important that all our municipalities in the county work together to showcase all our best features. Individually, we are not going to be an Asheville, but as a close-knit, united county, we will be something even more special. Because in Burke County, it's all about advancing. I hope you'll pitch in to help Valdez advance so we can help Burke County advance. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you, Beth. Gentlemen, you've heard this information. Any questions, comments on this item?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, my background's radio and TV sales. You'd be a great radio or TV salesperson. Maybe we could back up. To be real honest, I'm looking at this and, you know, trainings you go to build a budget, and they cover the basic needs, and they cover what people want, and they cover what is a gift or an aid, and this is properly designated per the manager as, you know, an aid. It's not a real necessary. And my big question to you would be, what other government entity is y'all also approaching to participate in this big endeavor? You know, are we the only ones that's being asked to donate?
Well, for the land purchase, we got $683,000 from the Clean Water Management Trust Fund.
Read it in the paper.
Yes, and the Parks and Rec Trust Fund grant, we received $300,000 from that, $300,000 from the Ralston families, and $100,000 from Kellex Seating. For this amenities purchase, we're going to go forward with a DEQ grant from a state, and that's about greenways, and that we think we can get $200,000 out of. So if I have my fundraising at $200,000 and we match, they require a match, $200,000 with them, that'll give us $400,000 for a greenway. Then the state loves us right now because we are having the super duper plan. We're going to apply for the Parks and Rec Trust Fund grant, Part F again, and they need matching, so we're going to have $400,000. I don't know why, but they allow you to like match. So we're going to take $400,000 and hopefully get $400,000 from them, and then we'll have $800,000 to build a park. And I'm going to apply with the Community Foundation of Burke County for $9,000 to fund half of the dog park. Everybody wants to take their dog to the park these days, so we're going to do that. We're also looking at Blue Cross Blue Shield and the Duke Energy Resource Management Fund. I don't know the answers on those yet, but does that answer your question? And regular old people.
Morgan or anybody else, any local entity being invited to participate?
I haven't yet, but I'd be glad to.
Just wondered.
Other questions, comments?
It's only $6,000 a month, right?
That's the request that she's making, yes. For the signage, I believe.
Yes, sir, for the welcome kiosk. And if something would go wrong and we never got any of these grants, you're still going to get the kiosk, because that I verified with our Parks and Rec director and town manager. Like if we just had only our $100,000 to spend the rest of our lives, that the kiosk would be a part of that. So there's like no risk or waiting till we get the grants. The kiosk will be a part of the initial plan.
Valerie is really going to be surprised if we do this after they pulled out EMS. Cost us a bunch of money. So.
Other questions, concerns? All right. Any further direction to our manager? All right. Hearing nothing, Beth, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, this brings us to item 9, Health Department. This is presented by Rebecca. Wow, Rebecca. Yeah, she got it. Yeah, she got it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to point out that 80s hair is back. 80s hair is back.
Yes, 80s hair is back. I love it. Good afternoon. How are y'all?
Good.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for allowing me to come and speak to you for a minute. When I have looked over our overall budget, we are very well satisfied. Then you might say, what are you doing sitting here talking to me today, if you're very well satisfied? But I feel I would be remiss as a health director if I did not come back to you, since I've asked for 3 years for another environmental health specialist. The last couple that we have had and hired, we are training based off of talking to Brian and Paul. We've gone back to cross-training people instead of just being food and lodging, do food and lodging and the on-site wastewater side. And that takes about a year to get everybody up to snuff. We are still, with the amount of new permits and new restaurants we've had over the last few years, we're only getting about 75% of our food and lodging inspections completed. We used to be up at 95 or 99. It's gone down. We do as many as we can. And for the on-site wastewater side, that is with new permits for construction, for repairs, and for wells and well grouts. That has been increasing also. So I'm just coming back to say, if there is any way possible to look at having one more. We have 6 staff. Right now I have 5, but I just got an okay to hire today for the 6th one, because we did have a retirement this year. And then we've had a new one that we hired and we've trained, and we're going to hire a new young lady. And she comes on June the 18th. But again, it's going to be about a year before she's fully trained. But that's the process. We don't have enough money-wise to entice somebody to come in from another county. And I'm sure they'll address that in the fair market study. I'm not even going there. I'm just looking at what's it going to take for us to keep going and moving things along. If you can find the way to do it, I've brought some numbers, if you ask numbers about how much of an increase or not increase on the number that we've done. I can give you, or try to answer your questions for that. So that's my one ask, because I have asked for 3 years and it's something that they do need. The other one, when I look through, because Paul always has to cut something. It is a matter of principle, and usually it's training. And I'm just, I just kind of like, okay, Paul, when I have to hire, and even with this new environmental health specialist, I'm going to have to go to Brian for his non-departmental training money, because they have to be trained, and we do get reimbursement back. But this year, it was interpreting money, and we have had more of our Marshallese folks, people from the Marshall Islands, who are coming in and who are coming for services. We do use the iPad. My staff love it. It's like, oh my God, you got a little iPad. You can get the person on there and they can be right there instead of using the telephone. And it's like $2.95 a minute versus paying $250 for 2 hours to get somebody to come in. And that's what we normally have to do for our deaf and hard of hearing clients, and for anybody that we don't have on staff, which right now are the Marshallese people. So even though they were lower amounts in maternity, family planning, and primary care, we're bumping right up. And Paul does not like us to do budget amendments, and I really try hard not to, but isn't that right, Paul? Yep. That would be nice. And $700 may not seem like a lot, but when we are required by the federal government to provide free interpreting, and my staff do not speak Marshallese, because they're from the Pacific Ocean, the islands out there. So my request is, if you can, then I'll have done my due diligence as the health director to come back and say, for environmental health, number one, if we had that one extra person, you don't have to buy them a vehicle. I've got one that they can drive. They would, I am going to have to provide them training, but I have to do that for everybody anyway. But that's $54,670, and then $700 for interpreting. And I can't, I run a tight ship, and I don't have a lot of leeway in my operating budget. So if I run out of interpreting money next year, I'll come back to you. If you don't have it, I'll come back to you and just say, can we find it somewhere? I'm willing. So thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Gentlemen, you've heard this information from Rebecca. Any questions, comments to her?
Mr. Chairman, one quick question. Rebecca, is this 100% county position or partial state, partial county?
This one is, we don't even get in, not even $12,000. You're looking at a county position.
It's a what?
County.
County.
We do get around $11,000 to $12,000 of reimbursement for food and lodging. We get our reimbursement from the state, and that's at 75%. We just got in the check the other day because Paul and I were talking about money, and it's around $12,000 that we got in for 75%. So it's a county. It's a county position.
Yep. Thank you.
But it keeps people from getting sick. Hopefully.
I'll just say in respect to this request that we all know in the past years, and especially the people that have been on the health board, Rebecca runs a tight ship. She could build her budget up many times over what her budget is, and I feel strongly about giving her this amount of money.
Thank you, Wayne.
So Rebecca, you said you're getting about 75% completion of food and lodging.
Food and lodging.
And so is there anything penal that happens from the state if you're behind? I mean, is there any consequence
The only consequence will be if we don't get to a facility, because you either inspect them 2 times, 3 times, or 4 times. And if they are a restaurant that ends up with a critical violation or people get sick with the foodborne outbreak, and now I go off of, let's be reasonable and look at how many times over the years we've had since I've been health director, 2. Before that, probably none, but that was my indoctrination into environmental health. So that's the biggest thing. If somebody gets sick and we have not, if you look right through the drive-thrus, see when's the last time they were inspected.
Well, our date is January, the last time. So we're here 6 months into the year. But also, in the past, the state withhold a certain amount of funding if you didn't meet the requirement of 75%.
They're only going to give you what you do.
Yeah.
But the main thing is somebody could get sick on the food and lodging side. On the on-site wastewater, you may get calls as commissioners because the staff have not had time. They've put in their permit application for a new construction on a house or on a well repair, and we're within 1 to 2 weeks of going out to get those done. The surrounding counties, because their staff is less, they have less people, and I don't want us to get in that situation. They have a 6 to 8 week, because they've asked Brian before if I could send staff. I went, nope. McDowell and Rutherford have asked before because they lack people, and we have enough here to keep my 2 on site busy, not mine, but on our staff. I can't send them to McDowell or Rutherford County to work. But we keep caught up. We're not 6 to 8 weeks behind like the other counties.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Another question? Rebecca, would we be at a point where we could authorize or budget some overtime for the folks that we already have, rather than a new employee, maybe ask each employee to work some overtime, one a week or something? Would that be an option? Do you have folks that would work with?
Well, I only have 2 right now, and Jackson's not fully certified, authorized. They're authorized, not certified. I'm certifiable. We only have 2 with Jackson does part of it, so that's 3 for food and lodging right now, because he's learning on-site wastewater. The answer to your question is yes, we could probably pay them overtime to do some of it if they would. Well, I can ask them if they would. I think they would have. I don't know if they'd have time. They might. That could be I know I can't put it out there for contract workers to ask for other people because the other counties are hurting. They don't have people to come in.
So in the past, Jeff, we've probably had double the amount of inspectors, even more than that probably, and we probably doubled the amount of restaurants here in Burke County in the last 5 years. So you can see the shortage of inspectors.
Back in 2009 is when we did our last reduction in force, and that's when 8, 9, that's when the county, when we let one of our environmental health specialists go, and basically I'm asking to go back to what we were at 2009. Because in 2009, when we had that extra person, then we kept almost 100% and got everybody done on both sites. But when the economy turned, I didn't do like I wasn't health director then, that was David. We didn't keep the same level for less amount like some people will ask you for, okay? So we let them go. Now I need them back. So it's hard to ask for them to come back when it's gone back up. I'll be nice to shut up.
No, I was going to say, could you inspect me and Wayne less and maybe use somewhere else?
Well, let me put it this way. I have gone through just randomly, and I don't try to go through different places, and I'm looking on the wall and went, I'll go outside and go, when are we going to inspect these people? It's been almost a year. And they're like, well, they're high traffic, so they're not, the food's being not kept in holding, so the temperature should be fine. There shouldn't be a lot of critical violations, but it makes me nervous as a health director to know that we're not getting what we need done. We're making sure we get the problem areas if we can. It makes me nervous.
Mr. Chairman, Barbara, just a quick I said Barbara, excuse me. Rebecca. Quick what-if questions, one of those questions you just feel like you have to ask, and so that you understand why you need to ask that question. The state says, well, you got to have a state, a county health department, and then the county picks up the tab. So my question is a little far-fetching in any of the employees you got, is there a reclassification, realignment that would put them more under the cost of state pay other than county pay to alleviate some of that cost? We get these mandates and they don't give you the money to fill the mandates.
No, they don't. And all of ours, we fall under the Office of State and Human Resources, but we are county employees. So I don't have anywhere to move anybody to. I wish I could. Our pay rate is the county employee pay rate. Ours is not the state pay rate. Because we're all just, and I don't have anybody else, because in order to be an environmental health specialist, you have to have at least 30 semester hours of science. And most of rest of my staff on the personal health side don't. They're nurses. They don't want to go and dig in the woods and do in septic tanks and wells and all of that. If I had another person I could switch over there, I would, is my answer, but I don't. Trust me.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca.
Thank y'all.
Okay, gentlemen, I think I hear we probably need to add some money to the interpreting.
If you don't, I'm gonna come back and see you.
We don't want to see you. We probably need to add that in, what was it, $750, Rebecca? Is that what it was? 700. 700? Johnny said 600.
If it's 6, I will take it.
It's 3 places, right?
Yes.
200 for each place.
I will do that.
Okay. 600.
I will do well.
There's three line items, 200 each line item.
What's your thoughts on the position? Is overhead, overtime something to consider for a transition, or should we go ahead and add a position? What's your thoughts?
No, we're talking about the position now.
Brian, do you have an opinion on overtime versus another body altogether?
I think the overtime would be a good way to test the waters to see the real need, because remember, fellas, we got DSS asking for 20, we're giving them 4, and we're going to do a study that may tell us we need to add to that. So if you don't have to go there, if we can try the overtime for a year, that'd be a little bit easier for me to deal with, for us to deal with.
Everybody okay with that?
Does anybody have the hours of overtime? Hours of overtime?
Just listening to what we're not getting to, you would think with the number of people, maybe 8 hours a week maybe might get you there. I don't know.
Well, on an inspection, it takes about 2 hours, and they mostly don't come at lunch or busy breakfast. So, I mean, there's not a lot of hours in a day that they can be in a restaurant.
Okay, we all okay with trying the overtime for?
I'm okay with the overtime. I think that's easier. Well, let's just test it out.
Test it for a few months, maybe 6 months.
Paul, can you give us any guidance on a general amount to put in for OT?
Let's see.
Mr. Chairman, Rebecca, one other quick question. If you find out after doing it, implementing it, it's not working, it's not beneficial, you can stop it at any time, can't you?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay, Paul, while you're working on that, let's have about a 5-minute recess. We've been going for a while. We've still got a ways to go. So let's take about a 5-10-minute recess, and then we'll come back. It's her fault. All right, this brings us to item 10, Hickory Aviation Museum budget presentation by Jeff Wofford. Is Jeff here?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just to sort of finish what we were talking about before we went on break.
Yes.
If you were looking at 8 hours per week for environmental health overtime, you're roughly in the neighborhood of $15,000.
Okay. All right.
Although you have to understand, Paul, some of the inspectors, they, on the bigger restaurants, they do 2 inspectors instead of just 1.
Yeah, I mean, my number is based on just a total of 8 hours overtime by all the staff per week.
All right,
So,
all the staff.
yeah.
All right, Mr. Wofford here? Yes?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not real strongly about supporting some of these smaller requests here. We're not going to get, I mean, if we just want to put money out there, I guess it's all right, but we're not going to get a whole lot of benefit out of something in Hickory, on the Hickory side of the airport. I mean, it's a nice thing to do if we have the money, but when we're already taking $2 million out of our budget, I don't see some of these smaller requests, honestly.
Okay, well, in the absence of Mr. Wofford, and any other comments on this item? All right, we'll move on to item number 11, Historic Morganton Festival. This will be presented by Abby Gentry. Abby, afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. Okay. I'm Abby Gentry, and I'm here today representing the Historic Morganton Festival, which is a 501c4 nonprofit. So the Historic Morganton Festival has partnered with Burke County Public Schools to develop and offer a student technology competition during the 2018 Morganton Festival event. The competition is called MADE, which stands for Morganton Arts, Design, and Engineering, and will engage middle and high school age students in an innovative competition designed to showcase desirable and employable skills. The competition is set to take place on Saturday, September 18th during the Morganton Festival, with the top 5 winners in the competition receiving funds to go directly to support their technology programs at their schools. And so far we have 8 teams represented during this competition, 2 teams from Patton High School, 2 teams from Liberty Middle School, Heritage Middle School, Table Rock Middle School, East Burke High School, and East Burke Middle School. Our current project partners include Work in Burke, Continental, Kellex, the City of Morganton, and Western Piedmont Community College. The students' design work will be judged from project partners as well as representatives from local industry, the North Carolina School of Science and Math, as well as an American Airlines engineer. The Burke County Board of Commissioners has done a lot in this community to support Burke County technology education, including the newly opened mechatronics building at Western Piedmont. So I'm here today to ask the commissioners to consider partnering with the Historic Morganton Festival nonprofit for the MADE competition in the amount of $3,000, which your contributions would directly benefit our area schools and students.
Okay, thank you, Abby. Gentlemen, you've heard this information. Any questions, comments for Abby?
Mr. Chairman, Abby, how much are the schools adding into this? Is there any budget from them? And who all will be? You gave us a list of who was participating. Are we the only government entity being asked to participate?
So the government entity that's already on board is the City of Morganton, and of course I'm here today to ask for the county's support as well. The schools have been involved not monetarily, but as far as time and effort in developing the project parameters for this year, and have agreed to support the continuation of this competition as a way to highlight our school programs and education within the festival, but monetarily they have not put money toward it.
Are the three BDIs, City of Morganton, Continental, they all going to put 3,000? Is that the plan?
Work Burke, Continental, Kellex, and the City of Morganton, yes.
Are they all going to put 3,000 in?
Yes.
I think it's a good idea. So I'm in support of that.
Yes, Work Burke has been very supportive of this idea, you know, with their whole initiative with highlighting our area industries and the jobs that are available here in Burke County. And I see this as a way of supplementing their efforts too, by highlighting our schools and our educational programs and tying that with our industry. And hopefully some of these kids, they'll be introduced to our industry with this project and decide to stay locally in Burke County and work.
Maynard? You good? Other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, just one question on something she said. BDI is contributing to this money or to this project, is that right?
It's Work Burke.
Okay, all right. Is that?
It's separate from, well, it's part of BDI, but it's my understanding that Work Burke is specifically funded by a grant.
Oh, okay. That was going to be my question. Is, you know, was their money coming out of the money that we're already giving BDI for operational costs?
It's my understanding that it's through the grant that they received for Work Burke specifically.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one question. So Work Burke, City of Morganton, Continental, that's $9,000. If we give these $12,000, how's that distributed?
So we are, for each of the schools that are participating, we are giving them a $250 stipend to assist in the development of this year's competition, which is called the Eco Chair. It's a competition that gives a nod back to our industry heritage of furniture making, but it's sustainable in the fact that the only product that they're being able to use to make this chair design is cardboard. So that'll be very interesting. It has to you know, hold a 250-pound person. They have to do a 3D scaled model in addition to the chair, show the blueprints, design process. And so that stipend is there to assist in the project development. And then we have 5 winning schools. Each of the schools that are in that top 5 category will receive funds in the amount of $1,000, $750, $500, and $250 prizes that will be specifically there to aid their technology education programs, which many of these schools, the program that they are utilizing for their curriculum is called Project Lead the Way. So that money will be there to assist in their classroom needs.
Mr. Chairman, let me ask her a quick question there. You said $250, Stephen, will be given to 10 schools? If you don't get it full, you'll go outside Burke County schools?
That was initially the thought. This year's competition, it's our first year doing this competition. It's staying within Burke County. As this competition develops and gains more support and more partners within the community, we would be looking at making it a regional competition here in Burke County.
Abby, one more question. The chairman and I kind of adding in our head, we didn't get to 12,000.
For the financials, you would not, but for the execution of the event itself, you're looking at the tent structure, the pipe and drape, the marketing, the banners, and also have, of course, with our sponsors and partnerships, we have a list of what you would get for that sponsorship. So just from the stipends and the financial awards, you would not get to that $12,000 amount. But with the total for the cost of the event and putting on this event, it takes some change.
Abby, do you think it'd be possible where it says Made Morganton that maybe Burke County could be included there and maybe other businesses or whatever competition? It sort of looks like it's all focused on Morganton.
Here, let me pass
if we give it out.
Yes, short answer, yes. That was a flyer that we developed during the start of this initial project process. So with the sponsorship opportunities, there would be many ways for us to include the Burke County logo in our marketing efforts.
Well, and probably the other businesses too.
As well as the other businesses.
You know, I think they'd all like that.
We would want you, if this is decided to go through, we would want you to be involved in this project. Not just
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One comment. Abby, this is probably an excellent cause, to say the least, but this is a promotion, if you will, sponsorship promotion. And, you know, from my opinion, to start doing promotions really opens up a window and a precedent that we never will hear at the end of people wanting us to sponsor events. And it's a good event. I support the event. I do not want you to understand that I do not. The cost is not the problem or the issue at all. It is starting something that be a never-ending circle on. And most taxpayers don't like to pay taxes for people to have fun. And that, you know, it creates a little bit different perspective for me. And I'm not speaking for the other commissioners. I'm just speaking for me.
I sort of agree with you, Maynard. I mean, I think we're opening up a can of worms here, but like you say, it's not a lot of money, but if you get 10 or 12 of these groups ask you for money every year, it does lead to a bigger pot of money.
I do understand that concern, and you know, I would like to say that this promotional event is different in the fact that it is highlighting our county schools, and the schools participating would receive benefit from being acknowledged from your financial support.
Okay, thank you, Abby. Gentlemen, any other direction on this item? All right, hearing none. Abby, thank you for being here this afternoon. Item number 12, History Museum of Burke County. This will be presented, I believe, by John Howard. And Waits.
Well, good afternoon. Claude could not be here this afternoon due to a medical problem with his family, so he asked if we would step in for him, basically talk to the council in terms of the History Museum. My name is John Howard. The reason why we're here as far as reconsidering hopefully some funding for the museum is that we strongly feel that the museum is a county resource. The museum represents all the towns in the county. When we talk to folks who come through the museum, we talk about the county primarily. I could go through a lot of numbers in terms of numbers of volunteers, 7,000 people that went through the museum last year. The fact that there's no paid employees at the museum. But in addition to that, I'd like to just share a couple of personal examples that I had over the past 2 years. My wife and I moved up from Florida looking for a place to retire, preferably in the foothills close to the Blue Ridge Parkway. So we were looking from Hickory over to probably around Old Fort in terms of a small town to retire to. and looking at each town, what was available, each county, what was available, and libraries, events, et cetera, et cetera. We visited the library here in Morganton, and my wife went into the library, and I just saw this sign off to the side saying History Museum of Burke County. So I figured I'd walk over, spend about 10 minutes, and just kind of walk through and see what they had to offer. I walked in, Claude was there at the front desk, and I said, well, you know, can I go through real quickly? And he said, well, we're closing at 2 o'clock. It was 1:45 at the time. And he says, it's going to take more than 15 minutes to go through the museum. So I said, all right, I'll come back. Came back about a week later, went through the museum, and I was totally amazed as to how much was there, how well represented the county was at the museum. And as a result, I've been working there, volunteering there since we moved up to the area. And as we moved up to the area, we found out that we were halfbacks coming up from Florida, not making it all the way back to New England, which made a lot of sense to us once we moved in. But working there since that time at the museum, people coming through, we've got a lot of people coming through that are tourists on their way to Asheville or somewhere else. School groups coming through, and just regular residents from the county. And if it's the first time that they've been through the museum, inevitably they all say, gee whiz, we had no idea it was this nice and this encompassing in terms of the history. Again, it's Burke County history that we're talking about, well represented throughout the entire museum. The folks that come through that have, again, have not been there before, get a sense of really how much history there is, from the over-the-mountain men to Revolutionary War, Civil War, etc. It encompasses, in my opinion, pretty much everything that the county's been through for the last couple of 100 years. Our mission at the museum is to preserve the history and educate folks as to really what has gone on here at Burke County. It's become more and more expensive to keep that preservation going. We take in collection pieces. We very rarely turn anything away that someone feels has a good historic issue as far as the county is concerned. We're over 20,000 articles now. Our biggest overhead issue for the museum is dehumidifying, air conditioning, heating to maintain that collection as such. Not to mention maintaining the premises to a certain extent so it's a comfortable premises to come through. It costs more every year. It's all volunteer. All our money comes from donations, foundations, public entities like the county. We really feel that with that help, we can make it better. We can keep it at least the way it is and maintain the quality that's going on at the museum. Like I said, I'm a good example of someone from away who came and discovered it here in the county. I deal with, as a tour guide, I deal with that every week as far as people going through the same routine of saying, well, gee whiz, I'm really surprised that this much is here. And it's such a great situation for the county. So that being said, again, we're hoping that through reconsideration, we can get some funding, some help from the county to keep this going. From our last presentation to now, we're definitely asking for less. $6,000 would represent 20% of our budget deficit. And that's basically what we're fighting against, is the budget deficit. And the budget deficit is just running the museum, just keeping the premises going the way it is, and hopefully going at a decent level that people can continue to be impressed with what the Burke County History Museum has. So.
I'd like to add that a couple of years ago we received, Warren Daniels called us and they had some state money. We received a $50,000 grant for a 501c3. Most of that money we were able to select and do an itemized thing to send in an item, but we had to spend the money based on the items that we selected to spend it on. And we spent every dime of that money, and we did it perfectly and spent in the results to the state, and everything was approved and done right on schedule. Most of that money was spent on the facilities itself, you know, the annex we have and so forth, the updating of that. I would like for you guys sometime to come over and really take a tour of that annex. You'd be surprised at what Claude has done with that. But keep in mind, a lot of that money was done with those grants. We run about a $29,000 deficit for the last 2 years each year. And that's through Jim Brinkley as our head of finance, and that's what we're working at. What we really need is some operating cost. There's no paid employees over there. We're all volunteers, and Claude and Wayne Hitt and 3 or 4 of those people give their life to that place. I mean, they're there every hour that it's open and more. So what we have is a beautiful operation. It's well kept. Your property is being well managed and taken care of. But we're going to need some help. And a lot of us are getting old. There'll come a time when we'll have to hire an executive director. We won't have a free one. We'll have to hire a lot of things. A curator. Everybody's free there. They just enjoy and love what they're doing. But we would welcome you to come see. I don't think you could find a speck of dust in there. That place is clean as a whistle. And the annex, you all know what we started with, and you ought to see it today for what it is. So a lot of that came from the state. We were happy to do that. We're glad to get it up and running. We really need the space because we're just over 20,000 items. It's a lot to take care of and be responsible for. So if you can see your way clear, we're not going to sit here out in the audience, and I know what you got going on. We have been to every little operation within the county here. Rutherford College, we've been to the Lions Clubs, we've been to the commissioners and so forth in each of these councils. And we're looking for a little support from everybody because we are the History Museum of Burke County. We're just not the Morganton. We've been to Morganton too, and we'll go back and see them again. But we need some help because it's expensive. You know what's going on, everything we touch. We're doing a grant right now in the process to get a new air conditioning pump put in the main building over there, which will be about $6,000 or $7,000. So we're reaching out to get all we can. Our fundraising is a little limited because of our lease arrangements with you guys, but we do what we can there. Our membership money is still what is driving us because people pay $35 a year for a family, $25 for a single, and a lot of them, ourselves included, add a lot to that when we renew our membership every year as a patron and so forth. So if there's anything there, if we ever needed it, we wouldn't be here unless we really needed it. I'll be honest with you, Claude is very frugal. They watch every cent that goes through there. So if you can help us at all, we certainly appreciate it, and we guarantee you that we'll spend it wisely.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I'm not against this by any means, but just a little history. I think in Maynard, in my second term, I believe, we gave that building more or less to the city building, to the History Museum, not any cost. I'm sure they did a lot of remodeling and whatever there, but just so you all know, we gave them that. And then, of course, just the last year or two, we gave them the use of the garage over there. So we've been pretty good participants in this. And I'm not against giving them $30,000. They do a great job, and people enjoy it. So, but just so you all know that we've been involved in that from day one.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I mean, the facilities are wonderful, and they're being well managed and taken care of. So I think that's important to you too. So,
Mr. Chairman, this is one of those bittersweet deals. My heart screams yes, and my mind says no. You can't do that. And I would request, Mr. Chairman, that we delay this decision. I failed to call Kay. I believe, Wayne, if you recall our deal with Claude Sutton at that time, that if we give this, they were never to come back and ask us for funds, and it falls into that category that this is not from their story, there's a real need to have it, but it's not a basic need for taxpayers who would probably like to support it. And I think we ought to get a little information from these guys. I'd like to know how many campaigns you did in the last year to raise money, what's the total amount you've raised, and if you are soliciting other people to aid, how many and what have they decided to give to this point. But this is really one of those bittersweet decisions. It's just, you know, it's a valuable collection for the county, I would admit to that. I am assuming, I know when I was in there before, I dropped in a tip in a little kitty. You still have that going, I'm assuming, that people will be able to drop in a donation for visiting it. But it's a tough call because of the, but I think we ought to allow Kay to look that up and get the other information before a final decision's made on that.
I would think, Maynard, we want to know about the municipalities, how much they put into it every year. Do they put any money into it? Does Morgan put any money into it, or are we the sole?
At this point, we've made presentations. We haven't gotten a positive response from any of those. So. Haven't had a positive response from any of the ones that we've been to. Probably 5 out of 8.
Probably won't.
But everybody's about like you guys are. What we hear at all these meetings when we sit through all of them, not just our portion, is security, and things of that nature. I realize there's a lot of that going on out there, and it's well needed. But we're all pushed for what we have to do. So.
And I think they've done a good job of trying to maintain the building. I believe the roof on the annex was, and they either patched or put it. Did you put a new roof on it, or on the annex, or just patched?
Up today.
And they maintained the other building wonderful. I mean, the building is a lot better shape than when we left it, or the city left it. So they do a great job. I just, like Maynard, I want to know who else has put some money into this. And they do a good capital campaign every year. They do that. So.
Comments? Gentlemen, I look at this museum as kind of the caretaker of our county's history, I think, and they're doing a wonderful job, and I understand the concerns you have. I'm not sure we can jump off right here with 30 grand, but I'd like to see us support them to, in some way, maybe $10,000.
Yeah, really, let me reiterate, we're not looking at the entire amount of deficit. We're looking at $6,000 as a part of it, if that makes sense to you folks.
Mr. Chairman, that's the reason I suggested we postpone and have some discussion, because one of the ideas I had that I was going to discuss with Claude, what if we did a one-to-one match on what they could raise up to $15,000? But I don't even know if we can do that till we go back and check the records, because I think that was included in part of the gift. I'm not sure, but yeah. I believe it was. But
there were some stringent things in there that, you know, things we can't do and things we can't do, and that's why I said we have limited fundraising.
Yeah, but the other, you know, how creative can people be on your volunteer staff, and they're like everybody else. After they asked 100,000 times, it gets tired of being asked, and they get burnt out, and I understand that element too. And a lot of people who say this is a 50C volunteer group, they immediately say they don't have to pay taxes, they don't pay any salaries, so they don't need my money, and that's a wrong concept too. So, sure you know, but I think if, you know, from my standpoint, again, I'm not speaking for the other commissioners, if we could do a challenge that would help you encourage other people to give, then we both win. It was
I'd entertain that thought.
Huh?
I would entertain that thought. I don't mind asking for money.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Before you leave, the chairman, I don't think, got finished. And then I want to say something. Go ahead, Scott.
Sorry, sir.
I just wanted to state that I would like to give some type of funding. I think 30,000 obviously in this budget year is undoable, but I would like to make some type of contribution. And you know, to me, it doesn't matter if we get some type of match. If we show the leadership that we're willing to invest in y'all, hopefully that'll pull along other entities to do the same. So to me, I wouldn't put that attachment to it. I would just say if we're giving 5,000 or 10,000, whatever that number is, we can discuss that. Maybe that would bring some other people to the table, make it a little easier for y'all to do a little fundraising.
Good, appreciate it, thank you.
We'll relay that on to Claude. He was checking his wife into the hospital, and I just checked mine out, so we were crossing. That's what I was doing here today. So mine had a kidney stone. I don't know what Joe's problem is, but I'm sure we'll find out later in the day. But thank you very much for your time.
Don't leave yet. I'm not through. If you get out of that chair again, I'm gonna change my mind.
I'm not gonna move until you say something.
Go ahead. The chairman's relinquished to me. You know, I feel like we ought to get something too. I've taken my kids up there, and every time I go back, I find something new that I missed the first time that I was there. You know, and I was born and raised in Burke, like most of you were, and it just means something to me personally every time I walk through there, and I think it means a lot to the citizens of the county. So I would hope that we can give something. I don't know what that something will be, but I think we probably, since it is the Burke County Museum, I think we ought to be the leader with something. I know we give the buildings, but they weren't in the greatest of shape when we gave them, and I'm glad that Warren got you $50,000, and maybe he can get you $50,000 more. We hope, you know, that he could do that, but there's just so much. I think everybody's got something from their family in there, maybe. Maybe you do, Maynard and Wayne, but some of my family. Yeah, well, my family, but you know, a lot of my family is in there, and I look back on the days when I was on the sheriff's department back. I look at some of the old guys, you know, that most everybody I worked with on the sheriff's department are dead, but their pictures are still up there, and I remember those times that we had together. So
between the Waltons and the Gordons, my middle name is Walton. We go back 250 years here in Burke County, so that's my interest in the History Museum and preserving it. So.
But from my standpoint, I hope that we'll be able to do something, you know, like, again, I don't know what that something may be, but I'm like Scott, maybe we need to take the leadership role. I like the challenge idea, you know, that, okay, Burke County did it, why don't y'all come on in and do the same thing? So, yeah, then we can measure that out.
Well, gentlemen, could we agree on an amount with stipulation that unless there's some agreement that was made previously that might preclude that in some way, then we would rethink that situation.
I think we want to end our budget process today, it looks like, and I'd be all for giving them at least $8,000.
Everybody okay with that?
8.
Well, that's more generous than what I was thinking, 5. But
well, that's fine too. Okay. That's fine too. But we do need. I think we need to do it today, and so we can end the budget process. And 5's fine with me. I mean, you know.
I think 5 would be a good number.
We still have the issue. We really need to find the details of that before you're breaking your own rules, maybe.
I really think that you're not going to get much out of the municipalities. We've seen it year after year that they don't answer the call, and Burke County is left with doing the funding of some of these things. But I'm fine with the 5, and I think you know, whatever way we can. I just don't think they're going to get a lot of money out of the municipalities, if any.
All right, are we settled at 5? And Madam Clerk's going to research that question, see where that goes. And if it's a problem, then we'll.
We don't want to have another meeting, a budget meeting, and just have this 1 or 2 issues on the floor.
Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, you
can I get up now?
You can get
up. I don't want to lose the money.
The longer we sit, does it get better?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
We appreciate it.
Take care.
Sure.
Thank you.
We'll work hard for it.
All right. Okay, this brings us to item number 13, Human Resources, Year 2 Classification and Pay Study. This will be brought to us by Rhonda Lee, our HR Director. Afternoon, Rhonda.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Hope you guys are doing well today, this rainy day. I'm really not here to ask for anything. I'm just here to kind of go over the pay study results. And Chairman Britton, would you like for me to read these as we go? We did that last year, and I'm not sure. I know you guys are needing to get out of here today, but how would you like for me to proceed with that?
Well, let me first, gentlemen, we've had this information. And as Rhonda indicated, you know, last year we took about a third of what we felt was maybe the most lacking. We did those. And now this year we've taken the next third that was kind of in the middle of the group. And Brian, as I understand it, all this is already in your proposed budget. So you've had a chance to look at this, and some of it I found very interesting. I wasn't really surprised by any of it. But so I guess rather than asking Rhonda to read and go through item by item, is there any particular question or interest you would like for her to address, or any other way you would like to hear it?
Mr. Chairman, Brian, I believe at last meeting or meeting before that you stated this was the third year.
Second.
Only the second. Well, we're not really going to be, we're not going to have the correct documentation of the implementing the 3 years to do this before we complete the 3 years. I said, when I read this, I said, Lord, that needs to be postponed 1 year. And I still feel that way. We're in the midst of implementing, and the end results of that implementing will not be there till next year, till next budget season.
I don't follow what you're saying, man. We've done the first third. This is the second third, and then next year would be the final section.
He said this year we're implementing as year 2, right?
The study now comes back for the second year and the second group of people, and it would be implemented in this budget that you're looking to approve now. So the money is built into the budget that's been recommended to the board.
Yeah, but the final figures of the third increase in salaries will not be there, can't be applied.
It's not the third increase in the same group of people.
No, I know it's not. But the other people that you're going to do a study on also is not going to have that increase.
Well, they would be studied next year, because we felt that those were the folks who were the ones that were not as far away from their pay point.
Well, you're going to spend $500,000 in round figures without complete information, without all the programs already designed being implemented. And it needs to be delayed, in Maynard's opinion. And I believe I could counsel with 100 people, and 90 would agree with me that it needs to be delayed 1 year.
Okay. Well, any other concerns about how Rhonda needs to go over this information? Any question about any specific number in here, or any specific?
Mr. Chairman, this is just bringing up the first year. We knew it was out of kilter, and we tried to bring the farthest employees up to a reasonable amount.
Rhonda, remind us which groups those were last year.
Okay. For year 1, we studied sworn law enforcement occupation. That includes the reserve deputies. We had studied detention officers the prior year before we even started this, so they weren't included in that year 1 process. Excuse me. We studied social worker occupations. We studied public health nurse occupations, and skilled and semi-skilled trade occupations. That would be general services and recreation. And it's pouring out there. Yeah, I know. Yeah. And then we also studied information technology occupations, and that was with IT and also the 911 center. So we studied all those in the first year, and then in last budget year, those positions, their pay was adjusted within this budget year.
And so now we're going to take the next second
now
group,
we've got the
that is
second group,
the lower pay again of the 3/3, and try to bring them up to
100% of market average.
And then next year we'll go the last
That's
third.
right. Yeah,
So
that's what we're doing.
It's just a process that we're going through to get our employees up to the right, or at least a way they can live on a budget or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the whole
salary.
the whole methodology and the whole process.
It's really a pretty simple thing. I mean, it's not it's just that, and we agreed to that last year, that we're going to try to bring all our employees up, but it's going to take 3 years to do it. We couldn't do it at 1 year because we didn't have the finances. So this way, it takes a 3-year process to get them up. Hope we have some growth in the county or fund-wise or whatever.
And I guess to make another point here, in my mind, before you go on, Rhonda,
Okay.
you know, Brian did not include a COLA in this budget.
Right.
And in my thinking, I'm good with that because we've already addressed a third of our people last year.
Right.
This would get the next third. And, you know, I think we can live with that this year.
But I mean, why we went to this plan was because we know we couldn't afford to do it all at one time.
Right.
I mean, it would have broke the county. So doing it in a 3-year series works out that we get them up to where they should be. Or by the time we get them up to where they should be, other counties will already have gone ahead of us.
Most counties, Mr. Chairman, do these things. I talked to one of the commissioners at Catawba. They don't do these any closer in 5 years. And we're doing one on top of in 3 years before we get through with the other one. And, you know, how much was the last cost on the last one?
230.
312,000.
Oh, sorry.
312.
Yeah, but that's with all the benefits and everything.
And we hadn't done a pay study like this in
2007. 2007. And we didn't do it internally, and actually we modeled this process after Catawba County because they would rotate, they may have changed something now.
Didn't hear you, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. We modeled this process after Catawba County because they would do a third and a third and a third of their workforce every year to make sure that they stayed in the market average. Now, Catawba may have a different, I guess, pay philosophy, where they want to be the market leader. And so we're just trying to stay at 100% of market average is what we're trying to do, to stay competitive with recruiting folks and retaining them.
So tell us what group of folks we're looking at this year, Ron.
What we got today?
Just the groups.
Okay, the groups, okay. So we studied the administrative support occupations. That includes Register of Deeds and Cooperative Extensions. So that would be like your administrative assistants and those folks. And those were kind of scattered all through the county. That was a group that was a bit difficult to study in and of itself. We also studied DSS. We studied the economic program occupations, the legal, and the child support occupations. So we studied the income maintenance caseworkers, we studied the attorneys, the paralegals, and the child support folks out of DSS. So that was the other group. We also studied Rebecca's programs, the occupations, not public health nurses, because we did those last year. So there we were doing processing assistants, we did the foreign language interpreters, we did environmental health, we did the education, the health educations folks, specialists, and so that was the health programs that we studied. We also studied the emergency medical services occupation, all the paramedics, and the deputy fire marshal and fire inspector occupations. So we had a big group this year to go over. So, but that is the groups that we studied, and these are the occupations that we studied.
Okay, any specific questions to Rhonda on these groups?
Well, Rhonda, that's those you just listed as going to be studied in this survey, or was?
We just did it in this year, and we're recommending to be in this year's budget, and the county manager has recommended in this year's budget.
Okay.
And really, if we don't do this, we're really depriving those people of what we promised.
But were they not included at all in the other study?
No, not in the first study.
So we didn't do a complete study?
We just did the third. We did the third of the ones that needed to raise the most to keep employees, and then we said the next group, the next needy, then we'll bring them on board, and then the third year, the rest of them.
As Wayne said, that instead of doing it all in 1 year, split
couldn't afford it.
Couldn't afford it, so
that would have been
split it in 3 years and have a continual study was the most efficient way to do it. I think you're doing a good job. I think this is,
Thank you.
I think it's done efficiently, and I'm excited to get back to market average. We're not market leader, but market average. And then I'm excited to also know, after we get done with this, we're going to be able to look at retention rates in those critical areas of need and see how much that's changed now that we're competitive. So I think it's a good process.
Well, I think we realized we just couldn't put that kind of money out in 1 year, and I think we all pretty well agreed to this system. I think it was a way that we could show our employees we were going to give them a raise. They know they were going to come up in the next year and whatever, and so you know, we didn't have to come out with that big amount of money in the first year. So I thought it was a good way to do it. And I think we pretty much all agreed on that.
Any other question, comment for Rhonda? All right. Thank you, Rhonda. Appreciate all of your efforts.
Thank you. Can I introduce our new assistant HR director?
Please.
Okay. This is, I'm going to embarrass her here in front of the group. Come here, Tanya. This is Tanya's second week with us. So this is Tanya Collier.
Hello, everybody.
Howdy.
She doesn't need this.
No, I did stage for a long time growing up, so I know how to project in a room without a microphone.
Look at Kay. She's happy. She's really happy.
But it's very nice to meet all of you, and I'm very happy to be here as a part of the Burke County family, and excited to jump in and continue to roll my sleeves up and row the boat with the team.
All right, you want to give us just a brief where you come from kind of thing?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I actually was born in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and my father was military, so I was a military brat. Growing up, we moved about 120 times, so when you ask me where I'm from, I say everywhere. I've grown up literally across the United States as well as Okinawa, and I have family literally scattered, and my parents divorced when I was 12. I spent the high school years in California, and then through my career and education and job opportunities, I have continued to move around and followed, you know, the great plan of the freedom of America. I was married for 11 years. I'm sorry, I lost my husband a year ago, and through that loss, I decided I wanted to gravitate towards more of my family, and I have family members back here in the west, or the eastern coast, and all over the place. My brother lives in Independence, Virginia. My husband's sister lives locally in Lawndale, and they have nieces and nephews and all of that fun stuff, and so I brought my dogs back, and so it's me and my dogs, and hopefully happy for the future.
Well, very good. Welcome to Burke County. We're glad you're here.
Very much, and thank you for everything you're helping us with.
Thank you.
Well, welcome to Burke County.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, this brings us to item 14 and final discussions perhaps on the budget. Gentlemen, any items in our budget that we maybe didn't talk about today that you'd like to discuss today?
Mr. Chairman, it is one thing I need to bring to the board's attention. Jim Wilson was telling me that in his submission for the library, he had included some what he thought was potential funding from the town of Valdez for the library expansion. He's since learned that money is not going to be forthcoming. So as far as the library budget is concerned, we will need to decrease the revenue from the library by $50,000. So we'll have to increase fund balance by $50,000. So just want to bring that to the board's attention.
Okay. Any other changes, comments? Okay. All right, item 15 then, gentlemen, is the cancellation of our June 5th recess budget meeting. We've tried to address each of the items today as we've gone through, and I think we have done that as we have gone. Unless you have other items that just are burning in your heart to come back for discussions, I'll entertain a motion to cancel that June 5th meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a couple of comments that does affect the budget. But I am not prepared to give them right now. One of them that kind of upsets me, and it's not an individual thing, is that you've got increases in the budget that shows somewhat partiality. I don't know if you gentlemen caught that or not. There's a request for the vice chair to get $750 more, isn't that correct?
Something in that category, yeah.
Okay, why are we doing that? There's 5 commissioners. Are there 2, 3, 4, 5? How many are there?
There's 5. I made that suggestion. I asked Paul to include that because the way we have our board set up, many of the meetings that take place with the manager and other groups, both the chair and vice chair attend. And that's, you know, we have the quarterly meeting with the school board. We have other meetings when we're discussing planning with the manager. And I just felt like it wasn't exactly fair that the vice chair, regardless of who it is, you know, I just thought there ought to be some small compensation. And so I suggested
well, I don't care if it's Maynard. I don't care if it's Wayne. I don't care who it is. You're positioning yourself, excuse me, not yourself, you're positioning for positions that are invited as money as the motive and not serving. It's like paying your deacons. Do you understand that?
I do. I don't agree with you, but I understand what you're saying.
Okay. Well, that's
I don't think anybody's serving on this board for the money.
You don't think what?
I don't think anybody's serving on this board for the money. I just felt like it was just you know, the vice chair has a little more time involved, more activity. And I just felt like that amount equates to half of the difference between what the chair's being compensated and the other commissioners. So that was a request that I asked Paul to include, and it's not intended for any partiality, but just simply to try to compensate the vice chair, whoever that may be, for the extra effort that they have to put into that particular responsibility.
Well, that's, I'm sorry that explanation is not satisfactory. We're gerrymandering things, show favoritism.
Then I would presume then you feel that the chair shouldn't be paid any different than the rest of the board.
Well, I didn't think so either. Matter of fact, I never got paid for chair. Supposed to, but I didn't receive it the last time I was chair, and didn't care. I don't think we ought to be paid. I believe we'd be a better board. But the difference, and one of those things has been nice to have had discussion before that decision was made, which we did not.
That decision hasn't been made yet. This board can choose otherwise right this moment if you like.
But
any other concerns on that matter? Any other concerns about the budget?
Mr. Chairman, before we adjourn, I just want to make sure I can go over my list of what I heard you discussed today, make sure I've got everything included that the board wants to make changes in the budget. So again, at some point in time before you adjourn, I want to make sure my notes are accurate.
Okay. We still got a motion on the floor to recess, but we still on discussion. Any other matters you want to discuss, man?
I don't have one. I was expecting another meeting.
Motion on the floor is to cancel the June 5th meeting in lieu of our discussions today. All those in favor signify by the uplifting hand. Those opposed? Madam Clerk, that's 4-1. All right. Now, Paul, you want to do that before we go on?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right. The changes that will be made in the recommended budget that I have listed today, first for elections, we were going to increase the staff travel from the $1,000 to $3,500, so that'd be an increase of $2,500 for elections. Western Piedmont Community College, no overall change. The difference, we were going to reduce master plan and signage. Master plan from 75 to 50, signage from 60 to 50. Take that additional $35,000 and increase our current expense appropriation from $2,445,000 to $2,480,000. So again, no overall change in their budget. In aids and donations, include or add the appropriation to the Forest Service in the amount of $67,764 as requested. Add $8,000 for the Burke Arts Council, which is the same amount of funding they received the current year. Add an appropriation to the Burke County History Museum in the amount of $5,000. And then for health, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky, there were 4 interpreting service line items in the health budget that was reduced from the requested amount. I think Commissioner Carswell had indicated adding 200 to 3 lines.
I saw 3 lines in the narrative. Was that wrong?
Well, there's actually 4 maternal health. They requested 5,000. It was recommended 4,500, so there's a $500 difference there. The immunization, they had requested 6, and we had included 500. The primary care clinic, they requested 4. We recommended 3. And the AIDS control budget, they requested 4, and we included 3. So I didn't know if we wanted to, identify 3 particular ones, because there's only a $100 difference in some of the, in 3 of those line items. And
The ones we need again. Based off of the programs that are current usage of what we need, they are the maternal health, the immunizations, and the primary care. We would be okay in the other lines, family planning and HIV, STDs, based off the people who are currently using the services and WIC. These are the ones I knew we would need it in.
Okay, so your request and recommend there's only $100 difference in 2 of those.
Mm-hmm.
But getting back to Commissioner Carswell's recommendation to add 200 to 3, that would put you more than what you requested. Would it be more beneficial to you to only add 2 of those at 100 and put the bulk of it in the maternity? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because we have them for 9 months.
Okay. So for the same $600, 100 in immunization, 100 in primary care clinic, and the remaining 400 in maternity.
Please.
Okay. All right. So that will clarify that. And then the last item was the amount of overtime appropriation for environmental health, which again runs about 15,000 for an additional 8 hours per week average. So didn't know, is that a number you want to go with on overtime?
Yep.
Okay.
Your number can't be wrong.
Well, I'm not saying it is, not saying it's not. I'm just saying that's a number. Okay, and that's all I have.
History Museum, 5,000.
Yeah, I'd mentioned those. And then, of course, I'll change the library funding by 50,000, so.
So you're going to show that the library is just not receiving that, is that? That won't.
Excuse me?
So the library will show that as.
Well, it'll be less revenue for them, but so it'll increase fund balance by 50,000.
When you say that, you mean 50,000 more out of fund balance? Right?
Yes, yeah. So fund balance will increase by another 50,000. So right now I think it's $2,055,000. So not counting anything else, that would make it a little over 2.1 million just to handle the library. Then again, these some of these additional things.
When did Valdez notify him they were not going to commit to the 50,000?
Well, it had been last week, I think.
Any reason?
Well, they had requested, the year before, the first year, because, we're putting in $250 each.
Yeah.
And so I think when Jim prepared his budget, he, and I don't know if it's based on some prior communication, I'm not sure about that, but, he had assumed that you know, or he was counting on Valdez contributing 50,000, and like I said, you know, he told me that, you know, he's been notified they're not going to contribute anything, so. So the option there is either, you know, add, you know, additional 50 to fund balance, or reduce his budget somewhere by 50,000, which overall in his budget, you know, that would end up being books.
Mr. Chairman, he talked a lot faster than I can write. Can we ask him to forward that to, if you don't mind?
About which one? Or all these?
No, yeah, the
Yeah,
changes.
okay. Yeah, I will.
Yeah. And you can forward your estimated cost of hiring those people for the new jail, which you said was 1.2 million?
Well, it was on, well, the 44 positions that the sheriff had requested, if you look at that cost, a full year's cost on those positions is almost $2 million.
Now, it's not going to be till next year, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and gentlemen, what the sheriff asks for and what the manager and or this board approves may be a very different number.
Right. And I think there were some good points in that, Brian, when we said, you know, that at the, not necessarily, that jail, we might not start using it right away, that we got time to, you know, to deal with that matter of salaries there, so.
Yeah, and that's counting on using the entire jail, not used but 2/3 of it, so.
Yeah.
So do we need any discussion on this library matter? Is that a matter?
I think Brian needs to put in his letter, his budget message that, you know, in the last few years, some of our municipalities haven't funded their part of things that they funded before, and now all of a sudden the county has to pick up those dollars, $50,000, and I don't care if it really takes the municipalities off. It's the truth. $50,000 is a big part of that library thing, and I think same thing with Morganton. They're doing it to us every year that we have to put money in our budget, and I think we need to tell the public about it. I think it needs to be in his budget, you know, whatever. So that's not right. I mean, they're you know, they're doing it because they know they can get away with it. Yeah.
So we. Do we, you know, I guess in my mind it would send a message maybe a little stronger if we said, well, we're not picking up that tab, and but I mean, I realize
it really irks me. I mean, the last couple of years, they just know they can get away with it, and they just.
Now, I realize it would hurt the operation if we didn't do it.
Right.
But what, you know. Okay. All right. We'll leave it as it is then. Any other comments, budget comments, before we go to a decision item? All right. Item 4, items for decision. We got appointments and reappointments to the Adult Care and Nursing Home CAC. That acronym doesn't come to me, Madam Clerk.
Community Advisory Committee.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, this is a request from our regional ombudsman, Ms. Christina Franklin. She has found and already trained 2 individuals that we'd like to appoint to the Adult Care Nursing Home Committee. It's Deborah and Ron Cooper. They've been vetted, they've completed their orientation, and they're ready to start making inspections to the group homes as soon as you guys appoint them. The state's doing it a little bit differently now. Whereas the training was occurring after the commissioners made the appointments, now it's occurring before you make the appointments. So the requested motion, well, excuse me, there's another part. Helen Wilson, her term on seat number 10 expired May 31st, and she thankfully is willing to serve another 3-year term. So this is a request to appoint Deborah Cooper and Ron Cooper to the Adult Care Home and Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee for 1-year terms ending May 31st, 2019, and to reappoint Helen Wilson for a 3-year term ending May 31st, 2021.
Okay, gentlemen, you've heard this information from the clerk. Any questions, comments on this matter?
Motion approved.
So moved.
Yeah, so moved.
All right, those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. Did everybody vote? I didn't see.
Yeah, everybody.
5-0, Madam Clerk. I wasn't looking at the right direction. Okay, so with all that said, I think, Madam Clerk, we are due a motion to adjourn this. So moved. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Had a lengthy meeting, but you have endured along with Rebecca and Scott. Thank you very much for your participation. And I suppose